The poor little girl was starving to death. She sat on the ground exhausted and could not get up at all. She didn't understand what was happening to her body. That day, a crowd of slum children were beaten to death. The adults mercilessly delivered their blows to the children. "Hey you hungry bastard! How dare you steal bread, you backstreet rat!" With shouts, continued to deliver those. One of these affected girls thought she was about to die. Everything went blurry in her eyes. But then, on the threshold of death, memories of her past life came back to her. The last one was a car accident. Then the silhouette of a girl appeared in her eyes. She was climbing an uncharted staircase. "Perhaps it's me," assumed the child, but the lady had already begun to fade from sight. But the protagonist had small baby hands, which she was surprised by. That day, she was reborn into a beggar, and not an ordinary one, but the heroine of the novel. At that moment, many books rose up and swirled in the air right above her. One of them shone with a special light. It was the book, The End of Eternal Flame. Inside this novel is the world you read about before you died. Hear the little girl from the unknown. Then the voices said that the girl was now destined to live a new life. This is how her soul seeped into the pages of the great book. That's how it happened. And so now she was here, but it wasn't clear why. Did I really get the role of a miserable beggar? The protagonist sadly reasoned. Speaking of which, if you think about my appearance, this body has its own backstory too, doesn't it? I let you live here, even though you're not even my own. Get the hell out of my sight, you filthy, filthy brat. That's how she was kicked out. That was the end of the child's memories. But I don't know the plot of this book at all! The girl was indignant. She wanted to think things would work out. She hoped the novel would end well. At that moment, the poor girl saw a stack of delicious bread on the table. She had made a mistake last time, but she decided that today no one could deprive her of food. She just had to wait for the right moment. Just then, the baker was called by someone in the kitchen. The girl decided to sneak out one of the baguettes. What luck! It's so easy! I won't share it with anyone. I'll eat it all myself! She was happy about her find. But the happiness did not last long. The owner noticed the thief at that very second. The beggar immediately began to apologize, looking at her uncle with puppy dog eyes. But he only ruthlessly kicked her out of there. While the hungry child was suffering, not understanding why things had turned out this way, some girl approached her. "Are you okay?" she asked, and gave her hand to the little girl. The stranger inquired how old the child was, and when she learned that the poor girl was only 8 years old, she decided to offer to go with her. The beggar woman was very frightened. "Is it really the slave trade?" But the girl turned out to be kind. "Take a look at this. My name is Violetta Fit. I am Countess Fit." She introduced herself. Then the reborn woman noticed the stranger's appearance. Brown hair, green eyes. Perhaps I can remember what the affair was all about, the girl hoped. "Bread. I'm hungry. I'm so hungry." The little girl started to cry, but the girl cheered her up. "Bread? We have a house full of delicious food, and besides it, like meat and freshly baked cookies. All right. Since you don't want to go, I'll have to eat it all by myself." Provocatively said the passerby that the little one went to her house. At that moment, the child realized that there was no way such a beautiful girl could be a slave trader. "I am no longer a wandering beggar." The girl thought happily and gave the lady her hand. Now the girl realized that her new life would be a path strewn with beautiful flowers. Upon arriving home, one of the maids suggested a bath. "Tell the mistress to call the healer now," the woman also asked. When the girl noticed her bathing place, she was very excited. What a huge, luxurious bathtub! So much foam! Delightedly pondered the child. While the bathtub was not ready, she was also encouraged to have fun. I shouldn't have judged them by their looks. They turned out not to be scary at all. The little girl realized at that moment. After she was clean, she was called for tea. The girl was happier in that house than she had ever been. I used to live in a place where both the master and servants had a disgusting character. This house should have a kind master, right? Obviously, there's no slave trade here. This is the most beautiful dress I have ever seen in my life." The little one was happy. It was the first time she'd worn such a gorgeous outfit. The child also flaunted her new image in front of the maids. But at some point, the reborn girl became uncomfortable. "What on earth am I doing? My pride is shattered. It's all because of the childish body. I don't want to be helpless again." She realized. "Isn't it time for us to eat now? The cook has already prepared delicious dishes," the maid informed. Everything looked so delicious that the main character was already drooling. She may have been acting wild, but Violetta told her to eat as much as she wanted. "Prepare the digestive aids," she asked the maid. Still, after the bath, you resemble that person even more. Is it possible to be so similar while being complete strangers to each other? It was Madame talking about Adrian San. But as far as Mistress knew, the youngest child died immediately after birth. However, no matter how much she thought about it, it seemed she had managed to find this boy's little sister. Rumor has it that the illegitimate child was kicked out at Viscount Bear's request. The child's mother seemed to just want money, the maid told the landlady. Then the girl wondered if the guy's eyes were a light blue color. Adrian's sister didn't die. 6 years ago, around the same time. What if Viscount Bear had an illegitimate child? Reasoned the lady. Still, they didn't know if he could have been switched. And they had no information if the dead child had pink hair and blue eyes. Find out about the woman who bore the child to Viscount and how much money she received, Madame ordered. Also, the Earl and his wife have indicated that they are almost finished dealing with matters at the mansion and will return to the mansion approximately next week. The maid reported at that moment. The girl decided for herself that she needed to look into this case thoroughly because she knew how hard it had been for Adrian's family. By this time, the baby was asleep. She had eaten to her fill and immediately fell into slumber. "Tomorrow, I will take Adrian's hair and go to the temple," Violetta decided. The next morning, the girl woke up joyfully in the bed of a kind stranger. Immediately afterward, my friend gave the baby a big hug. It was very sweet. "Why don't we go pack slowly? Today we're going to visit the homes of my close friend Adrian S.," said the older one. But at that moment, the reborn realized that she had heard that name before. Adrian S. was the same name as the main character in the novel, but this book had a bad ending. The girl continued to recall the plot of the story with horror. "So, I have pink hair, and I lived in a slum," pondered the conjecture she was making. There was meat for breakfast. Even though the little girl was very hungry, she was afraid to start the meal. But if I do something wrong and get beaten up again, what will I do then? She was wary. At that moment, a piece of steak fell to the floor. That's when the obscure guy appeared. "Is that all you're worried about? It won't be long before your doom befalls you." He threatened the little kid, after which the frightened girl woke up. It was just another dream. Anyway, it's already night. Because of the child's body, she only eats and sleeps all day long. But this dream, perdition. Ha ha! Am I even sure I'm in a novel? As expected, it's just my illusion. The protagonist calmed herself. Then the girl saw a teddy bear in front of her. For some reason, this bear seemed very familiar to her. She pressed the button and it moved. "It is good to see you, child. In my dream, you held me in your arms and the seal was broken. Ho, 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 ho!" pronounced the toy at that moment. The little girl remembered that in this novel, the heroine's magical powers remove seals. The girl was frightened by it and just threw it away. She ran crying into Viola's arms. She easily calmed her down. The lady had magic hands. Afterward, the heroine went to put the younger one back to bed. "He cried so hard. You're completely different from the other children," the aristocrat remarked. That same night, a certain envelope was brought for the mistress. "The results for the biological affinity test have come in," the butler announced as he entered the room. As it turned out, the probability of blood relationship was 99%. The owner of this huge mansion, Duke A.E.'s, is the duke of one of the wealthiest families in the fair empire. Violetta saw the child's worries, so she offered her teddy bear a hug. But the girl, of course, didn't really want to do that anymore. That bear. Maybe it wasn't in that novel. And really, if it is that novel, then Violetta could not give me a bear. Reborn reasoned. In that novel, the protagonist never gave anyone a teddy bear. In a few minutes, the right people arrived on the spot. They were the real parents of the little girl whom Violetta had called to inform her of the beggar's bloodline. You may be utterly confused right now, but your guesses are correct. According to the evidence from the temple, this girl and Adrian have a blood relation. Decidedly, the teenager reported. The couple couldn't believe it. They mean to say I was the Duke's daughter? Nor did the little girl realize as much. The parents were completely confused, but the young girl's guesses turned out to be completely true. Mrs. could not even keep on her own feet from such shocking news. The moment the main character saw the face of one of the brothers, she immediately knew who it was. In the book, The End of Eternal Flame, this guy was the assistant of the main character, Adrian S. The girl could no longer deny the reality of an affair with a crazy, bloody ending. The book she had read in her past life was called The End of Eternal Flame. The main character was the crown prince of the Zer-Fur Empire, and the Adrian AEs who appeared before her eyes would become the prince's aide-de-camp in the future. As children, Violetta and Zer promised each other to get married. Because of unrequited love for the protagonist, Adrian commits suicide without ever finding out what the marriage was really hiding behind it. In the end, the heroes die in the finale. The title of the novel implies that the moment the flames are extinguished, everyone will meet a bloody end. This all terrified the girl, who was reborn as a small child of the S family. She knew from the beginning that this story had a terrible ending. She could only hope that it would somehow work itself out. Why? Why can't this affair have a happy ending? The little girl fell on her knees and could not rise at all from the horror. When the family sat down to tea together at Violetta's house, the little girl immediately climbed into the girl's arms and threw herself into her embrace. She's just a little afraid of strangers so far, the lady explained. At this time, their entire family was considering a small child. I've been thinking so much that I've managed to get hungry. It's not like a field of flowers at all. Well, was it possible to torment a man so much with empty hopes? What am I to do now? Thought Miss, as she sat in Viola's arms. At that moment, a staff member approached His Excellency to inform him that representatives of the temple had arrived. We are pleased to welcome you. As you can see, the bloodline percentage is 99 9/10%, the man reported. It was pretty good news for the family. Truth be told, the little girl was injured not long ago, and I had her treated. But some of the abrasions still haven't gone away, and it will take too long for them to heal, narrated the landlady. Since you're already here anyway, can I ask you to examine her again? The girl asked kindly. We would be very grateful for your help. Would you be so kind as to examine her wounds? Violetta asked the Duke. At that moment, a kind man approached the child and used his powers to heal the wounds. That was called healing. The wounds disappeared like magic. It felt pretty good. But the only thing after that was sleepy. So the little girl was put to bed by the adults. Is that really our sister? But the youngest child has been dead for a long time, hasn't she? She survived and came back almost like a zombie. Does that make the zombie look like Mom? Considering the baby were her twin brother and sister, Lee and Luca. But Big Brother asked them to be quiet. You might wake her up. You'd better play outside. When the parents were alone with Violetta, they asked her to tell them in detail what had happened. Now I remember that maid, Rosalia. That woman gave our child to Viscount Beer because of money, Mom said with horror. After the adults had thanked the girl, Viola asked what the girl's name was. As it turned out, her name was Rafe. A few hours later, the little girl woke up. She did not know at all what to do, and reasoned, therefore, aloud. Child, what are you anxious about? Won't you listen to a story? Unexpectedly asked the teddy bear, who was lying with her on the bed, but she considered him only a useless toy. Apparently, Adrian. I wish that nightmarish future hadn't ended up happening. Wait a minute. What if we actually change the plot? Abruptly wondered Rafe. In the original, Violetta never gave anyone a plush toy. Rafe was sure of it. But now, it was she who had given this teddy bear. At that moment, the reborn realized that the perpetrator of the bad end himself could prevent a series of monstrous deaths. If Zur stayed alive, the kingdom wouldn't fall either. So now the little girl was thinking about how the plot could be changed in the first place. Then her teddy bear informed her that he was a spirit of infinite wisdom. If something is bothering you, just say the word, he happily declared. He's intellectually impaired. I remember that well. He may be a small teddy bear now, but in his true form, he is a huge, terrifying wild bear who would do nothing to tear a man to pieces. The little girl knew. And his only flaw is stupidity. That was Rafe's opinion, though the bear kept saying she was underestimating him. I am the deity himself. All the secrets of the universe are within my grasp. I also know that you are trying to change the future, the bear confidently announced. He asked to just tell him everything because he wanted to help. That's right. In the original, he's stupid, but he has amazing powers. There is no good without good. The girl understood perfectly. The girl decided to tell him everything she knew about the history of this world. Exactly. An artificially created world. It turns out there's a possibility that you were a character in some story. It was unclear what the bear was carrying, but Miss decided to get straight to the point. She asked him to tell her whether it was possible to change the future. And when Rafe got a positive answer, she was very happy. In the original, Zur and Violetta tie themselves in marriage, because of which Adrian, heartbroken, dies. Correct? Toy clarified. The solution is obvious. We just need to get the guy to marry someone else right now. The bear informed in a calm tone. Such a thought had never even crossed the little girl's mind. Rafe knew Zur was too young for that. Then let him get engaged to someone now and have the wedding when he's older. The bear decided to advise. You're the one who wanted to change the future. Isn't it up to you now? The teddy declared, alluding to Rafe herself as a candidate for marriage. Zur's mother passed away from a terminal illness, and Adrian left him. Consumed by grief, he clung to Violetta, the protagonist, with the obsession of a madman. This ended up being the cause of his death. But there was also the option that the protagonist could also interfere with the baby. Although the toy reported that therefore the matter does not need to worry so much because he became strange, and for the death of the mother, you just need to not let her die. How on earth am I going to cure an incurable disease? Rafe didn't understand. You can if you get your hands on the legendary jewel, and I know where to find it. It will cure any disease, explained the bear. If this is true, then the main character will really succeed in stopping this madness. It was now the little girl's goal that the beautiful Violet should not become possessed by Zero. In that case, a happy ending awaited her angel. Rafe knew what had to be done to spare this story from a bad ending. That was her dream. I will create a world where everyone stays alive. I must break the engagement of Zer and Violetta and create a new union. Then she and my older brother must marry. The little girl decided for herself. The girl wanted nothing more than to make everyone happy, though perhaps that sounded a little creepy. And then I'll take my due share and go on my way. Completed the perfect plan she had. At that moment, Rafe was also curious about her toy's name. You just now decided to inquire. My name is Alexander Ruby Fur Vell. It sounded proudly from the bear, but the little girl decided to still just call him Bear. She wouldn't be able to memorize his name anyway. The front door to Rafe's room opened suddenly. The girl was very frightened, so she decided to just pretend to sleep. It was Duke and Duchess S. who had returned. Adrian was also there. The family came to see a sleeping member of their family. Poor girl, it's been so hard on you. It's all my fault. With pity, the father continued to look at his child and reasoned. Don't say that. The important thing is that she's back with you. Rafe is a strong child. She'll get used to everything quickly. There's no need to worry. The lady of the house comforted the man. The girl, who was pretending to be asleep, also heard Adrian's sweet, angelic voice. He was very pleasant, and it convinced Rafe once again that they had to save this boy. Their life must be a field of flowers. The boy had to go now, which the little girl herself did not want to do. Then she got up from her bed and shouted loudly, "Don't go!" asked the little girl. She threw herself with tears in her eyes at her baby brother. "I've definitely lost my mind. How could I burst into tears like a little child? Everything is in turmoil. Shame on you! Pull yourself together. In this baby body, I have no control over myself at all. I've really gone crazy," reasoned the little girl to herself. The next day, the whole family sat down at the table. Everything was delicious, and the little girl was delighted. "And it's all for me, just for me alone. Goodbye, beggar who ate stolen stale bread." Gladly, she continued to eat Rafe. Before, all the food Rafe ate was more like dog chowder. Now the child realized how good it really was to eat to her heart's content. At this time, the child's father became tense. He asked his butler to find out how Rafe was living at Viscount Bear's house. After a delicious meal, the girl had water procedures. Violetta bathed the baby girl in the most anything but pleasant conditions, with lots of foam, toys, and a good mood. "She's so talented. Is it all because she's the main character?" reasoned the little girl. "Rafe, listen to me carefully. You will now live in this house with everyone. They are your family," told the main character to the little girl as she toweled her dry. In her previous life, every day was hell for Rafe. She ran away from her family for money, ended up dying in a plane crash. Nothing has changed in her new life. Those people brought her nothing but misery. So she decided she could never have a loving family again. At this time, her little brother was watching the baby sleep. "I'm your big brother, Adrian S.," he told the baby. He was really thankful that she was back. Now, all of Rafe's family members were treating her with affection. "Can I afford to enjoy this happiness?" reasoned the girl to herself. As the little girl fell asleep in her mom's arms, she reasoned how history could be changed. "First, we have to prevent Adrian's death," Rafe decided at that moment. But the little girl herself couldn't quite concentrate on this important task as she lay in the woman's warm embrace. "Mom, in my past life, my mom died early and I barely remember her. So this is what a mother's warm embrace feels like," pondered Rafe fondly. "I never thought I'd ever really have a real family. I could call someone mom, too." It was with joy that the reborn woman realized. Bear also said that if she calls the Duchess that, the Duchess will be very happy. After all, for any woman, it is pleasant to hear the word mom. For herself, the girl decided that nothing terrible will happen if she is a little greedy. After all, she is sure to turn a sad ending into a happy one. A week later, the Duchess no longer cried every time she saw Rafe. Their relationship was really warm and sincere, like mother and daughter. Duke A.E.'s, on the other hand, still continued to frighten the little girl. She didn't want to go into his arms. Rafe only hid behind her mother's back every time she saw her father. He never once got to hug his daughter. Rafe even treated even the stranger's girlfriend Violetta much more warmly than she did her father. "As long as Viola is with me, everything will be all right," considered the little miss. That fear was well-founded. Rafe thought back to the words of her past horrible father. "I welcomed you into my home because I considered you my daughter, you disgusting piece of garbage." And there was no way the little girl could stop thinking about it. "Stop acting like a child, but I'm really scared." The reborn woman couldn't calm herself down. Then, to calm the crying girl, her brother offered a snack. "Adrian and Violetta should eat with me too," loudly declared the child. They had no choice and decided to go to the garden for a meal. At this time, the father was analyzing his daughter's behavior. "Rafe, apparently she is very afraid of grown men. Is it really before arriving here?" No, we need to calm down. Duke S. thought it over. The man had no idea what this fragile girl had been through. Her arms and legs were thin and bruised, but he knew for a fact that he wasn't going to let it all just go. Prepare to answer for everything, Beer. You made my daughter suffer. I will destroy you. The man decided at that moment. At that time, Adrian, Violetta, and Rafe were having tea in the garden, as they had planned earlier. They were having fun and laughing together. It was obvious how the guys fit together. The little girl was like watching a scene from a movie. Bear confirmed that the main problem was Zira, but the girl didn't understand why he needed to get married all of a sudden. The birth of the king's second son became a threat to Zira, who held the place of heir to the throne. He was also pressured by the relatives of the crown who were on the royal council. For Zaire, marriage was the best way to stay in power. He never had any trust in people, and only once decided to make an exception for someone close to the man. And that person was Violetta. There was no love between them. The purpose of the marriage was to keep the throne. It wasn't until after Adrian's death that it all eventually led to Violetta realizing her true feelings. The girl realized how difficult the task ahead of her was. Her bear continued to comfort the child as best he could. If you get engaged as early as possible, they won't even need to get married, he pointed out. But after all, no one would take the child's words of engagement seriously. We must get a promise from Xeris to take you as his wife now. And when the question of marriage comes up, he'll think of you right away. It's called a verbal contract. Told by a bear. At this time, her little brother broke off a small piece of cake to feed to Rafe. He gave her a tasty morsel from his spoon. It looked really nice. Aren't you opening your mouth too wide for such a small piece? Brother, feed me too! The twins came in at that moment. But Adrian didn't think they were allowed to do that. He only wanted to feed his little sister. Rafe, what do you want to eat first? He asked the little girl. As they played and ate together, their mother watched the whole spectacle with tenderness and warmth. She was truly happy for the way things had turned out. My beautiful girl, you have been through so much. Now may your days be filled with only happy moments. She wished all the best for her child. Here it was time for Violetta to leave the Duke and Duchess A.E.'s mansion. Stay with us a little longer, said her mother, but it was indeed already time for the girl to leave. Plus, they should have also taken time to spend with family, as Viola thought it would be best for Rafe. At that moment, the little girl ran up to her friend, who had become like a sister to her. She too decided to say goodbye to Violetta. No, it's too early to leave yet. I'll be too anxious without you. The little girl couldn't let her go. Rafe, I really need to get back home, and my parents are back at the mansion, Viola explained to the little girl. Still, distance is a hard thing. It's still a little hard for you on your own, isn't it? But there's nothing to be afraid of anymore. You have a loving family now, a friend remarked. They would indeed be by her side, her new family. Then Rafe asked for the girl to come tomorrow, and Violetta promised to do so without any problems. Then she got into the carriage and drove off in the direction of her home. Turns out the word family alone can bring so much warmth. Now that leaves Adrian, Reborn reasoned. The little one decided to run up to her little brother and say something in his ear. Show her out. Hurry up. Violetta shouldn't leave alone. In a sweet voice, the little sister asked. She knew that the guy had to be by her side every minute, every second. The sooner you realize you like each other, the sooner things will get better. So get closer as soon as possible. That's why I asked Violetta to come over tomorrow. Pondered the little girl to herself. Rafe, let's live together this week. Next week your room will be ready, suggested the girl's mom. Her bedroom would be ready soon enough, but for a while she would still be sleeping with her mom. But that didn't upset the girl in the slightest. She didn't mind. After all, then all the attention will be mine alone. It feels so warm on my soul when the Duchess hugs me, pondered Rafe. If you call the Duchess Mommy, she'll be very happy. The little girl remembered the teddy bear's words. I, on the other hand, would be very happy if you would finally start calling me by my name," her bear toy said jokingly, but in a serious tone. But the little one would not even listen to him. So warm and tender was she in the arms of her beloved. Rafe's big brother came into the room. He decided to ask his mom to play with his little sister before bedtime. The woman had no problem letting him do it. Adrian gave her a rattle, but Rafe didn't really know how to react to it or how to play with it. "This is the toy that newborn babies usually play with. Do they think I'm 1 year old?" she said to herself. In turn, the twins offered other games. "Rafe, do you want to play dolls with your brother? Let's play fairy tales instead," they suggested. It was very hard to play actually with small children. At that moment, the sissy remembered her friend as well, so she decided to ask how Violetta was doing, whom he was supposed to walk to the house. "I walked her safely and came back. Do you like her that much?" he asked with a genuine smile. Though in truth, the girl knew very well that it was essentially only the guy who liked Viola the most. As the story goes, Adrian has loved her since she was a little girl. It was very touching. A hero who left this world before he could even open his heart. But it didn't matter at all, because Rafe was determined to bring everyone to a happy ending. In order not to panic, the girl decided to tell why she fell so much in love with the lady. "She's gentle, always smells nice, and she has an affectionate voice and warm hands. It would be great to have Violetta live with us." With a little hint, the little girl explained, "Really? You think so? Let's ask her to visit tomorrow during the walk then." The little brother decided to suggest, even though that wasn't what the little one was talking about. "Okay, Adrian is only 10 years old now. He just doesn't get it yet." The heroine of the novel reassured herself. "Let Violet and baby brother get married!" The little girl decided to declare loudly to the whole house. This really struck her mom and Adrian. But the problem was that they didn't pay attention to the child's request itself. Adrian only noticed that Rafe had called him brother. That really touched the kid. "Brother, that's right, Rafe. I'm Adrian, your little brother." With tears in his eyes, the lad uttered. He only heard what he wanted to hear. In that moment, Rafe realized it was true. Things were going to be much more complicated than she had anticipated. In the end, the love operation failed. She undoubtedly thought it was because Adrian was too young. Then she had to move on to a backup plan, seducing Zira. She and Adrian are childhood friends, so we could start there. The girl decided to take the initiative and asked when Violetta was coming. At that moment, a beautiful green-eyed girl walked into the room. Adrian immediately said hello to her, and the little girl ran straight into her friend's arms. As expected, she came without Zer. That said, Adrian, along with her, immediately began their dialogue nicely. "Violetta, thank you for your concern. Let's all have tea together in the garden," suggested the little brother. But the little girl interrupted her brother's plans. "No, Violet and I will be alone," the little one said proudly and independently. Rafe decided that if Zer didn't come, she would come herself. She did it all just for their happiness. Even Viola confirmed that she and her brother were best friends. Then Rafe decided to ask if the lady had any other friends. "Of course! I have a good friend named Zer. He is the crown prince of this kingdom," replied the friend, and that was just what Rafe needed. Zer is incredibly popular. Viola didn't want to admit it, but she knew that he was indeed very handsome. Though he wasn't really more handsome than Adrian, they were about the same. "Why are you so interested in him? I mean, isn't he your friend?" Unobtrusively, the little girl decided to ask. Rafe decides to explain her curiosity by saying that she wants to meet all her friends because the girl in front of her is a very nice girl. This made Viola very mortified. "Rafe, I will definitely come tomorrow too, and I'll bring Zer with me too," informed her friend, which meant that the little girl's plan was really working. Now soon they will be able to see the main character of this novel, the heir to the throne Zer. The further fate of all the other characters depends on him. He was obsessed with the main character, turning the final story into a tragedy. But now, Rafe could take the whole situation into his own hands and make everyone happy. That same evening, the man was brought secret documents belonging to Viscount Bear. They contained all the information, including Madame's birth record. They were brought by Hari, the identity of Duke S's secretary and butler. He was a man who could be trusted. After my father read these documents, he was horrified. Now the Duke didn't know what to do, so he asked his secretary for advice. "If you give me an order, I'll take it immediately. Is it worth engaging the Black Mask Squad?" Decided to clarify the employee. The Black Masks are a secret organization of the underworld, capable of getting rid of a person without a trace. It is a top unit under the command of Duke S. "Just to think what those bastards did to my daughter! No, I can't just let it go!" The father decided for himself. He started by asking for a block on their income. "All the members of this family who dare to treat my daughter like this are pathetic trash. Make them regret their own birth," ordered the stern superior. This punishment was truly deserved, for the little girl had been tormented for quite a long time. Not only was she hungry, but she was also beaten by the hands of her father. As long as the Black Masks are in the hands of Duke AEs, the moment when Viscount Bear will pay for the sins of his own life committed is only a matter of time. Such a statement came from Rafe's real father, and the man could easily be understood. I'll never forget that day. The floating mansion, the crying of my wife, tearing my heart to pieces. He remembered, and a dead baby in my arms. It was my fault, and I have carried the burden of the mistake I made all my life, admitted the father. But here she appeared before him again, alive and unharmed, and those memories came flooding back into the man's mind. It was indeed a miracle for him to meet his little baby again. The next morning, the whole family gathered to have breakfast together. At the dinner table, the twins were joking about something of their own as usual. "Lee, look at Daddy's face. Daddy looks like a carp." The children laughed, but then they also heard Rafe laughing at their joke. The kids didn't expect her to do that, but the girl herself was really laughing. "I'm not the only one who thought Daddy looked like a Crucian carp," she thought to herself, though her toy wasn't thrilled about such a thing. "But it's still not polite to laugh out loud at something like that, little one," the bear explained. In order to keep this situation quiet, Rafe decided to spoon-feed her dad. This was quite a surprise to everyone in the family. Finally, the little girl started to trust her daddy. It was so sweet and touching that even the father himself, like everyone else, let a tear fall. In this house, tears are always flowing all by themselves, but there was a need to clean up. "Baby, are you okay? Today is the day," reminded the bear. It was the day Violetta was supposed to bring Zer. For such a solemn occasion, Selena, the baby girl's personal maid, had even prepared a beautiful outfit. "Your dress is ready. Let's wear it," suggested the girl with a smile on her face. She also handed over, as a final part of the image, a toy for the little girl. "Madam, will you take your favorite teddy bear with you?" she asked, and gave it into the girl's hands. Everyone here was very kind. Even the maids treated the child well. Rafe's horrible memories were slowly dissolving. With these people, she would definitely bring everything to a happy ending. The girl was sure of it. In her beautiful outfit, the little girl went out to eat. Daddy looked at her with a smile, though it was quite embarrassing. But from that day on, he only behaves like that. The father constantly spoils his child and shares his favorite sweets. Even the other maids have already noticed the change in the relationship between daddy and daughter. Mistress has finally grown attached to the Duke. She was always so scared of him, but in the end, she was still able to open her heart to him. The maids were happily discussing, but even Rafe herself felt strongly that the Duke cried every day. Though now everything was really fine. "Since that day, Dad doesn't seem scary to me anymore. Besides, there really is a blood bond between us," the child remarked. It seemed as if love was brewing in Rafe's soul, love for her father and for the whole family. The girl decided that she would definitely have to try and maintain this well-being. After lunch, the twins suggested playing hide and seek together. Rafe gladly decided to play with them for a while. After all, children's instincts take over. I thought that with the advent of good food, all the problems in my life were resolved. However, I keep acting like a child all the time. But it's so exciting. Where do I hide? The reborn girl in little S's body reasoned. Rafe chose a perfect place to hide. Then she decided to run around the corner. But at that moment, she saw a strange guy with red hair. He scared her very much. "Ah, a monster!" screamed the little one all over the yard. But the guy immediately tried to calm her down. "Mistress, don't worry. Allow me to introduce myself. Ran is your personal knight." He greeted. He was given orders to follow Rafe during the game. "I have to hide. Hide and seek." With a shortness of breath, the girl explained. The guard then decided to help her pick a place to do so. After a moment, he had already thought of places. "Since it's very dangerous outside, maybe it's better to hide in your room. If you cover yourself with a blanket, Mr. Adrian will never find you. Or you can hide behind my back," advised the serious man. But to the little girl herself, these places seemed too primitive and silly. So the girl lightly pushed the knight and ran to hide. "Are you a fool or what? Hide and seek is a mere amusement in your opinion. He thinks they're just ordinary fun. Hide and seek is war, pondered the little girl. But while she was running to find a place to hide, she didn't notice the visitor at all. Mishka told the girl to look carefully ahead. It was then that Mistress noticed those very black locks of hair in front of her. Finally, she was confronted with the main reason why this world would fall into chaos. A man with hair as dark as could be, and eyes as scarlet as blood and eyes. Surely it was him. The protagonist of the novel, The End of Eternal Flame, that he would become possessed in the future, was right in front of Rafe. It was the same Zur. From how fast the little girl was running in search of a place, she fell to the ground. So the guy offered his help to her to get her up. But then Violetta came up to them. She picked up the baby herself. "Oh, how come? Are you all right?" inquired her friend. Then she decided that it was already time to introduce the baby girl to the heir. "Rafe, this is Zur, a friend of Adrian and I, His Highness the Crown Prince." She introduced the boy, and he immediately said hello. Little didn't know at all what to say to him, but her toy advised the girl to go straight to her plan. "Let's get married." After a couple seconds, an unsure sound came from the little girl, in response to which Zur only simply remained silent. Rafe knew full well that she had 2 more years before the protagonist went to the academy, and she just had to make a verbal pact with him before then. After a few seconds of awkward pause, the guy agreed. But it was obvious that he said it only to avoid offending the little girl, though Rafe herself was already very proud of herself at that moment. "Let's put my unrivaled persuasion skills to use." The girl thought proudly to herself, and Violetta herself only laughed at the situation. In the girl's opinion, it was very cute. "Zur, Rafe fell in love with you at first sight. I thought I was the only one in your eyes. Should I be jealous already? Don't you want to marry me?" My friend jokingly began to ask. But in fact, if it were only possible, the little girl would spend her whole life with her angel Violetta. But the story goes that Viola should belong only to Rafe's brother, and the youngest daughter of S already knew very well with whom she would fall in love. Besides, Adrian's feelings for her are too deep. Violetta had no idea that he had died all alone, but at that moment, Rafe didn't want to think about it at all. "I must prevent a tragic ending and get a happy ending," the little girl reminded herself. "Violetta, you're very good too, but I'm going to marry Zur," confidently said the little one and took the boy's hand. The latter even smiled. The little girl thought that her plan had already succeeded at once, and they lived happily ever after. The end. "It turns out I've totally figured it out." Rafe was already starting to get excited, but at that moment she was distracted from her thoughts by Adrian, who stealthily approached their company. The boy had brought a few baguettes of bread for his sister, But what was his surprise when he saw Rafe holding the crown prince's hand? I apologize. Apparently there has been some misunderstanding. It seems my little sister made a mistake. With a smile on his face, the little brother said, "Am I hallucinating? My beautiful brother with the purest soul, the assistant to the main character, he just can't have such a frightening facial expression. I was wondering how Adrian found me. It's all Ren's fault." Reason to herself, miss. "I hear, Adrian, your sister wants to marry me," Zur informed his friend with a snide smile. But Adrian didn't even take those words seriously. "Ha, those are just empty baby words. She only recently turned 6. Is it possible to believe everything a child says?" Lowered him down from the heavens by S. The atmosphere was heating up between the two of them. Although Zur was only joking, it was the first time Violetta had ever seen Adrian react so sharply. It was obvious that someone was angry. "Violetta, when it comes to your sister, you immediately turn into an icebox, right?" clarified the guy. This was said because the girl immediately lunged at her friend. And the guest himself also confirmed that the expression on his friend's face frightened him too. "That excited? That's right. Even though Rafe is young, she's still a lady. What were you thinking?" Adrian complained. When Zur walked into Mr. S.'s mansion, the little girl's parents were immediately told about their youngest daughter's desire to get married. The mother immediately apologized for Rafe. "Your Highness, please forgive our daughter's behavior. She has just returned home and hasn't yet—" But the woman didn't have time to finish before the crown prince replied that it was fine. He realized that it was just a child's playfulness. That's when the guy announced that he had a gift for Rafe. It's a jewelry box with a wonderful bracelet. "Do you think she'll accept it?" asked the boy to the little one's parents. In the novel, Zer had a connection to the deities, even though he was an ordinary man. The only spirit he could control was the spirit of water, sealed in a bracelet. But when the younger heroine of the novel saw this piece of jewelry, she never realized where it came from. "Her Majesty, the Queen, asked me to give this bracelet as a gift. I only delivered it to the recipient," explained the young boy. If you think about it that way, it's all very strange. According to the plot of the novel, the bracelet was supposed to reach Violetta after a few years and then release its magical powers. As far as Rafe knew, Violetta gave her a teddy bear, and the spirit inside it awoke. But spirits sealed in objects do not awaken so easily, and the protagonist knew it well. To manifest or not is their personal choice. Only a person who is a bearer of magic can wield such things. If the spirit rejects the possessor, it will remain sealed in the object forever. So the bear chose the little girl. But that's the problem. Now Rafe had to put on that bracelet. But once it was on her arm, nothing happened. It seemed like it was the spirit giving up on the little girl. "Yes, that's right. One is quite enough for me. We'll have to return the bracelet to Zuru later." While her mother hugged her baby girl, Rafe continued to wonder what she should do. She didn't know if she should go to the Queen and tell her all about the spirit. It was for the sake of a happy ending, after all. And while Rafe could see Zur laughing carefree now, she knew full well that in a few years, he would practically go insane. But the little one decided to take her mind off the bad thoughts and go eat some goodies. Rafe knew that Zur's mom was a queen. "I'm interested in learning more about his relatives, the king, the queen, and the younger brother," pondered the girl. These were the people who would be the cause of the little boy's insanity, and Rafe remembered that very well. The relationship between the brothers was not good. That was also clear. But then the bear gave another idea. "Little one, then it will be even easier to get close to the crown prince. Remember when Adrian acted like a fool because of you? We need to do the same with Zero. Do you understand? Remember how jealously your brothers protect their little sister," explained the toy. "If this method works, I can stop Zur and Violetta's engagement," the little girl realized at that moment. But the big question is, what does it take to win Zur's heart? Rafe didn't know. But her bear told the girl not to worry, for he had one win-win option in mind. One day, Rafe was able to gather all her will in a fist and come to Zer's house. She didn't see the boy there at first. The servant said he'd gone to the library, so on top of that, Ren was hanging on her tail. Walking a little further into the room, Rafe still saw the person she was looking for. She realized that this was her chance, and she needed to start a conversation. The girl decided to just do what Violetta did. She always hugged the little girl tightly and affectionately, so little Rafe offered him a hug. At that moment, the child remembered what her favorite Violetta had told her. "Rafe will eat a lot and grow big, won't he?" Her embrace brought calmness to the baby. From then on, Rafe asked her friend to hug her more often, which Violetta always did. But after the little girl asked to hug her future fiancé, Zer himself had an incomprehensible expression on his face. It happened just like that. Zer happily took the little princess into his arms. It looked very cute. Then Rafe remembered her toy's words. "When Zer stiffens up like that, do what you did to Violetta," the bear had once advised. The guy stood up like a stiff. Then the little girl decided that this was her chance. "Come tomorrow too, and come play with me," Rafe invited him. It was obvious that the boy was happy about the offer, but he decided to show off a little more. "Well, if the schedule on this day is okay," he said slyly. "To my half-brother, after all, I always open up without the slightest hesitation. To be honest, our relationship is terrible. But this girl—" Zer pondered to himself. Then he decided to cheer up his little girlfriend. "I will surely marry you," declared the heir. And it was really amazing, as if the little sisters have some special ability to manipulate people. "Yes, I think it is. I understand Arian now." The little girl continued to reason, but then Zer decided to ask the girl why she wanted to marry him. It was clear that it was all for a happy ending, but there was no way Rafe could tell him that. So the lady decided to state a counter-question. "Don't you want to marry me?" she asked, in response to which the friend only just laughed. Now the little one reflected on the fact that he would have to propose every time they met. But while they were laughing, suddenly Adrian and Violetta entered the room. "Yes, Rafe, you want to marry me, don't you? Adrian, what's to be done? Will your sister really become the crown prince's wife?" Purposely said Zer to annoy his friend. Lastly, before saying goodbye, the little girl also kissed the heir's hand. She knew that touching was the best way to get close, so she did it to make a good impression. At this time, Adrian was simply shocked by what he saw. She felt sorry, really, for her brother, but after all, she had no other choice. It was for the greater good. As long as she stuck to her plan, then everything would be fine. But actually, things weren't fine at all. Her bracelet glowed with an indescribable light. The girl took off her bracelet and put it on the bed. The spirit was crazy. A familiar voice came from the jewelry, but she was scared and covered the bracelet with a pillow. Her teddy bear said it was probably Oscar, the water spirit. As far as Rafe knew, Zer hated him in the original novel, even though Oscar is usually very kind and sweet. He has a dark side to him. He swore a lot. Compared to him, Zer is just a pure angel. In order not to listen to unpleasant words, the baby decided to go to bed with his beloved parents. After all, the morning is wiser in the evening, and it is very difficult to live in the body of a 6-year-old child. The next day, Selena gave a new dress for Rafe. The girl also realized that she had been awakened by a strange force. Last night hadn't been a dream after all, even though I'd be very happy if I was just dreaming it all. She reasoned, but unfortunately she and the bear are in harsh reality. That bracelet kept swearing, which pissed off both the little mistress and the little mistress herself. But there was nothing left to do but accept it. It's still a piece of jewelry that can't be broken so easily, and besides, it's a gift from the queen. You can't just throw it away. The girl only asked the bracelet to be as quiet as possible, and surprisingly, it obeyed her. Just then, Selena came into the room and announced that she had prepared a small gift for the little girl. The maid suggested tying a ribbon on her teddy bear. It turned out to be quite beautiful and comfortable. A backpack. When the girl went outside, she immediately met Adrian there. "The weather is so lovely today. Do you want to go for a walk?" suggested the little brother. Her parents were away on business, and the twins had a lesson with their teacher, so they would be alone with Adrian all day today. This made the little princess very happy. "That's fine. I was going to wait for Zur anyway," thought Rafe. She hoped that she would be able to talk to Adrian about Violetta. She decided to start their conversation, but her brother was suddenly ahead of her. "Rafe, do you like Violetta?" the boy asked. The girl, of course, confirmed this. She had recently told me that her friend smelled nice and had a gentle and affectionate voice. In fact, it was actually a good thing that her brother had been the first to strike up a conversation about her. "I can't pass up a chance like this," the little girl decided to herself. "It would be great to have Violetta living with us. I want her to be part of our family," Princess declared, to which the guy decided to ask if Rafe had the same feelings for Ziru. "Why did you fall so much in love with him after you first met him?" questioned the brother in surprise. The little one got out of it by saying that the guy was just a friend of Violetta's, which was why she liked him. But of course Rafe knew that she just had to change the future, even at the cost of other people's sanity. Sure, Zur clearly doesn't have the best temperament. However, he never did anything reprehensible until he went insane. But even if you like His Highness so much, do you have to start talking about marriage right away? Besides, Rafe, do you know exactly what marriage is? Brother clarified. Adrian tried to argue that it was too early to think about it at such a young age, but the little girl continued to insist on her point. "You have no idea what I'm going through. Who would even want to marry Zira? I'm trying for you," shouted the little miss to herself. "That's right. I have to deal with everything for the greater good. Life is complicated, and sometimes it throws up difficult tasks that must be solved." Clearly, the girl knew. At that moment, Adrian only thought that Rafe was better next to Zero than him after all. Words cannot describe what I experienced when I first heard of her desire to marry him. It was an absolutely horrible feeling for a young lad. No, either way, Father won't let this happen. Come back to reality. Rafe is only 6 years old. When she grows up, she won't even remember the whole situation. The boy consoled himself. He decided that he should just try to get closer to her first, so he offered the girl to play a little in her room, which was already finished. A narrow room with a flimsy old floor. Not so long ago, a little hope of a better life was a luxury to me. Now I live in a wonderful home, pondered the little girl as she walked to their room. When they arrived in her little sister's room together, Rafe was indeed full of happiness. The bedroom looked simply wonderful. "This is the first time I've ever seen such a luxurious interior. It smells so nice in here, and it's just unbelievably huge. I couldn't have dreamed of having my own place in my previous life." Rafe continued to marvel. "Ahem, you can use it until you grow up. Once you're married, you won't need it anymore," Adrian reassured her. The little girl continued to marvel at the entire interior. "Words can't describe how gorgeous this place is," rejoiced Rafe. "I wish it could be like this forever. I will definitely need to bring the story to a good ending for the greater good, and I will protect Adrian's happiness at all costs," motivated the little girl. At that moment, Mistress was informed that her friend had arrived. It was obvious that the guy was obviously not happy about it, because he knew that Violetta wouldn't come today, so that left only one option, Zir. No, Zur is very busy after all. He wouldn't be able to. The Crown Prince's position doesn't allow him to waste time. However, then why am I so uneasy? Reasoned the little brother. But at the same minute, the heir to the throne, Fur, entered the room. Rafe immediately decided to run to her future fiancé for a hug. Adrian silently watched all of this with horror. Pretty warm greeting. Sorry about that, Adrian. Decided to finish him off there. Even though I'm here, I have a lot of things to do, so I'll only be able to stay for a little while. The guy informed, but it didn't upset the little girl one bit. Zur had kept his promise after all, so it was a sin to complain. Rafe decided to brag about her new large bedroom. That's right, a very large room. Are you sure you can sleep in here alone? With a sly smile and asked her friend, honestly, I wish I could stay here longer because Adrian's little sister is really cute. At the sight of his brothers, I never had such a thought, although my half-brother is still the worst. I think even Adrian would have a hard time with him, Zur admitted to himself. The guy also realized that Rafe was completely different. Small, delicate, fragile. Her voice is so beautiful when she calls my name. Are all little sisters like that? The young man didn't understand. By the way, when should I expect you next time? When are you coming to see me again? Interrupted the little girl from his thoughts. Zer admitted that it is difficult for him to answer this question for now. I usually don't have time for that, so Violetta and Adrian always come to the capital themselves. He told, which made Rafe a little confused. That's right. Why didn't I think of that before? I have to meet Zira's mother. Realized the little girl at that moment, so she decided to inform her that she would go then too. Next time, I'll come to you myself, the little one declared. Zira's mom doesn't have to die. If I can resolve this problem as soon as possible, then the main cause of his madness will disappear. The heroine of the novel realized at that moment. Now everything was going according to plan. At the end of the day, Rafe summarized. Today turned out to be a fruitful day. Before I left, Zur promised to meet me again. Told the girl to her teddy bear, and the teddy bear praised her for her fine work. But the toy told me they had a new problem. It's not easy when a friend tries to take your little sister away from you, informed the bear, alluding to Adrian. I get it. His long-lost sister has just returned, and all her attention goes to strangers. The little girl realized, so she came up with an idea to get her brother's attention. At the same second, the girl offered to eat together. After all, there was no more appropriate weapon in the fight against sadness than something sweet. Rafe, stop it! You love Zur more than me, don't you? Declared the frustrated boy. Absolutely not. I love Adrian the most. But with Zero, we will definitely get married. And you'll have to get married to Violetta. I want her to live with us. Decided to tell the lady aloud. But I can't marry her just for that, confusedly declared the little brother. By the way, if Adrian and Violetta marry first, then Rafe won't need to marry Zira. In that case, he could just marry someone else. That seems like the best outcome. In the original, he just wanted a marriage of convenience. At this time, the gang had already caught the very abuser of the youngest daughter. You dare to beat my child with your vile hands and kick with those feet! Answer me! You say you weren't aware of it? Threatened the father. But that thing was definitely aware of the crime committed. Knew whose daughter it was. Yes, even if she wasn't mine. The man continued to say, How can you treat a defenseless child like this? Your words sound like you would abuse your own child as well. In an angry tone, he shouted, I don't care whether I torture my own child or someone else's. I would have starved it to death or beaten it to death anyway. Besides, I didn't know it was your daughter. The Viscount justified himself. The bad man kept making excuses. He also didn't want to show his weakness. When I get out of here, I'll report you guys right away. I'll tell everyone that Duke Aes is the head of the Assassins' Guild. Although everyone understood perfectly well that if this pathetic trash survived, it would only be worse for him. I'm sorry about that, Bear, but you seem to be a bit out of your depth. You know what the difference between our guild and any other guild is? We only deal with bad people, exactly the disgusting ones like you. Father Rafe explained. Gambling, human trafficking. What horrible things you've done, Bear. You've been booked as many as 5 times now, said S, looking at the maniac's list of bad deeds. So his father advised him to give up hope of survival at once. At this time, his daughter Rafe was looking for her favorite teddy bear. Since Ruby was lost in the middle of nowhere, Rafe had to call Oscar to help find him. I think one of the maids took him. While we were sound asleep, the maid took that bald bear. Also, that shabby scarecrow was asking for your help, but you were sleeping so sweetly, and he was making a lot of noise, so I ordered him to shut up, said the water spirit. The girl immediately realized it was about Celine, so she ran to save her toy. While she was talking to the bear she had rescued, her old friend Violetta knocked on the room. Rafe, do you know what day it is today? Don't you remember? The lady intrigued the little miss. As it turned out, it was the day the little girl had been waiting for. Today they would go to Zeru's. It's been almost 3 weeks since I became the Duke's daughter. I've even gained weight. Today is going to be history. Selena did my hair, and my mom picked out a blue dress. And I even got a present for Zeru. Rafe thought everything was absolutely perfect now. When the little fairy went down to the hall, her little brother was waiting for her there. Viola also came down a little later. In general, Violetta and Adrian had become very close during the 5 days of meetings. Rafe only remained to tie Zira to herself. Great. Let's go to the palace then. That was the beginning of the operation beginning. The day the little girl would save the world was just around the corner. As soon as they pulled up to the gorgeous palace, Rafe was even speechless at the beauty. It looked as majestic as in the movies, and it was all pretty graceful, but although there were a couple details that seemed overdone, as soon as they entered the mansion, they were immediately greeted by the butler. I apologize. You will need to wait for His Highness in the guest room for a while. Would that not be a problem for you? He asked kindly. As soon as His Highness finishes his business, have him join you at once. We don't have any other appointments anyway. With a smile on his face, the Duke's son replied. At that time, Violetta asked the boy to pay attention to the younger girl. The girl knew about the visit here, but she didn't expect it at all. Not so long ago, I was eating dog chowder out of a bowl. The rags, the torn shoes, and the whispers of a pathetic beggar. Those words still run through my head. She couldn't let go of the past. Little one, have you decided to get rid of me? Don't forget that I can reincarnate and easily crush this castle whole, her teddy bear declared. The girl realized that she must not lose heart, for the fate of the kingdom was in her hands. So she decided to divert her attention to the desserts. Rafe wanted to eat everything without a second thought. At that time, someone knocked on the door. Has Zer come already? The little girl rejoiced hopefully, but then an obscure man came into the room. Ah, I help you. My nephew's friends are gathered here. I understand you came for his sake, but in this place you have a chance to meet other important people, stated the stranger. It's a pleasure to meet you, young Mr. S. and Mrs. Fit. He mumbled at the same second. I am the uncle of His Highness the Crown Prince, Eddie Rowley. He introduced himself. It was a knight of the realm. The little one had heard him called Uncle Zira, so Rafe realized it was the Queen's younger brother. Based on the plot of the novel, the royal family was contentedly friendly until all the events that eventually shattered that idyll. Ah, I'd like to introduce you to someone else. I'd like you to meet someone else. My fiancée. Uncle also introduced. Her name was Anne. She was the woman the Queen's younger brother would marry. Rafe remembered very well that in the original story, it was their marriage that would cause the butterfly effect. This woman is the first cause of all future events. It is her actions that will destroy the royal family to the core and will drive Zira to madness. She was just a scary person. To prevent Zer from going crazy, I have to stop events from happening. Perfectly realized the little girl. But how? Absolutely nothing comes to mind. Come on, think. Should we start by trying to stop their wedding? Reasoned the lady. It was then that Zer stealthily joined their banquet. The girl took his hand and whispered what she wanted to say in his ear. Marry me. The boy heard a few seconds after he met the little one's eyes. The other guests noticed it as well. "Violetta, are you thinking what I'm thinking? I wonder if there is a way to get rid of this marriage system." Other older children jokingly discussed. "I've been wondering the same thing for the last 5 days. But I've come to the conclusion that I'll have to put the idea of marrying me into his head at every opportunity anyway," realized the young lady. However, first, the two of them, Anna and Eddie, needed to be dealt with. "I was relayed that Her Majesty the Queen is currently in the conference room, so I decided to meet with Your Highness the Crown Prince first," said the man. "Besides, word has reached me of the arrival of Your Highness's friends, so I came by to say hello. By the way, I completely forgot to introduce you to my fiancée." Eddie continued to explain. "This is Anna. I told you about her in a letter. Your Highness was able to meet my future wife before the Queen herself. You must be very pleased." The strange uncle spoke. This was the moment the little girl realized that she had to settle the matter with this woman somehow anyway. "I know what kind of person she is, so I don't really feel like talking to her." Lady S understood. In the original novel, he has a hard fate. Uncle Zara brought this woman on his return to the capital, but the truth is that she is carrying another man's child. But at the moment, for some reason, there is a very pure and innocent energy emanating from her. It's hard to even imagine her having a different personality. Despite her humble appearance, she is very cruel. The little heroine of the novel knew. The woman had worked at a shelter in the past and regularly beat children. Doesn't Rawl notice anything? She looks like she's not aware of anything at all. To be honest, her behavior is impeccable. If you don't know anything, you can be fooled very easily, Rafe said to herself. That's why there's no forgiveness for her. She's using the people who love her for her own ends. In the future, after the birth of her offspring, Rola's wife returns to her first man when she completely steals from her husband. Most shocking of all, however, is that the child's biological father is another relative of the Queen. And when the truth is revealed, disaster will befall the ruling family. Rola will be branded as an unscrupulous man who had his wife taken from him, and there'll be no way to recover the stolen property. The Queen's family will lose prestige and dignity, and the youngest brother will be stripped of his title by disgrace. The whole family will face serious financial difficulties. Family members will begin to drift apart, and all this burden fell on the Queen's shoulders. It was the woman sitting in front of Rafe who had caused the rift in the ruling family. And after that, the Queen will fall ill with an incurable disease. The girl bear continued the story, but Rafe realized that she just had to help her because Zer mustn't go crazy. Then the petite one wondered if it wouldn't be possible to tell everyone in advance that it was the woman who was pregnant. Wouldn't it be wonderful if Anna had a daughter as cute as Rafe? Heard the girl from the other guests. I'd like you to give birth to a cute little sister for His Highness the Crown Prince, sweetly told by the shameless husband. That moment, Rafe realized she had to act. She approached the very woman. You're really going to have a baby soon. You're already carrying it in your tummy, aren't you? Rafe said sweetly. That was the plan for her toy. Little one, there's a folk belief. You've heard of it, haven't you? They say that little babies are able to sense if a woman is pregnant, said the teddy bear. The girl had heard this before, as she had been told about it by her maid, Celine. When life is born in a girl's belly, other children can feel it. In this beautiful fairy tale, little angels were made to wish for a child to come into the family. Thus, people began to believe that babies understand when a woman is pregnant. Some people still do. Whether you believe it or not, a belief is still a belief. And that's exactly what the bear's plan was. The girl who approached her aunt allegedly felt the baby in her tummy. Right now, he's sleeping sweetly in his tummy, Rafe went on to say. She thought that this way she would eventually talk them out of getting married. These words left the woman stunned. A child, you say? Ha ha. Anna didn't know how to react to this. Oh, what an entertaining joke! That adorable, childlike directness. The woman tried to get out of it. No, I know for sure. You have a baby growing in your belly. And right now he's asleep for now, but I... Before Rafe could finish speaking, she was immediately shut down by her baby brother. Still, it wasn't very cultured to talk about such things in the house of a royal family. Meanwhile, Anna continued to squeeze out a laugh at the supposedly good joke from the little girl. The conversation had clearly reached an impasse. To dispel the awkward situation, Violetta decided to inquire about their wedding date. "Well, let us tell you everything over a cup of tea," Anna's future spouse suggested. While the kettle was boiling, the woman decided to go out to powder her nose. Rafe also heard this, so he decided to go to the bathroom after her. The maid, who was escorting the little girl to the toilet, offered her help, but Rafe refused. Then the maid offered to wait for her outside the door. When the girl went into the bathroom, she immediately saw an unpleasant person. Rafe started asking about the baby again. At that moment, the woman approached the little one, and so close that the little girl even became scared. "Little mistress, if you keep talking like that, you might get into a little trouble. Liars like that are usually abandoned by their parents and sent to an orphanage." "Are you a liar?" "You know, when kids lie, there's a very unpleasant punishment that follows. Adults hate kids like that," the lady warned. Little liars are beaten until they're blue in the face. Or locked in a tiny room with no food or water. Did you hear me? Even an aristocrat from the most powerful family should never tell an untruth." The woman continued to threaten and dug her nails painfully into the child. Then the woman couldn't stand it and pushed the little lady with all her might. "Grr, I also know it's Lord Grr's child," the little one continued to provoke. "Did you really think you could keep it a secret? You showed your true gut as soon as I said his name, didn't you?" Miss said. Then Rafe's plan went to the second level. The girl immediately cried. The very same maid burst into their room. "Before everyone finds out she's pregnant, I'll reveal her rotten and cruel nature to them first," decided the clever little girl. Then some other aunt came into the bathroom. There were many diamonds shining on her. Her eyes were a beautiful red color. It was the same queen. Rafe noticed their resemblance to Zer immediately. The girl realized that now was definitely her chance. She had a chance to show everyone Anna's mean nature. At the same second, Rafe cried, but Anna herself also realized that she couldn't screw up in front of the queen. "You! Raise your eyes! Stop pretending like I did something to you! It wasn't me! She fell by herself!" The woman continued to make excuses. "This is Duke Ae's daughter, a guest of His Highness the Crown Prince. I was waiting for the young mistress outside the door, but suddenly I heard loud noises," the maid explained. To divert the queen's attention, Anna also decided to enter the conversation. "Also, Lord Roll has arrived. Your Majesty the Queen, it is a great honor to meet you." Auntie began to narrate. "By the way, it seems that in front of me is Duke S's youngest child," the woman stated, and sweetly took the child in her arms. Rafe, of course, knew the queen was kind, but not that kind. Though there was a time when Zer was small as well. Rafe immediately felt sorry that such a sensitive person would die due to illness, all because of the horrible people around her. Therefore, the heroine couldn't let that happen. "Anna got angry and pushed me," told the little girl to the queen. "But I was the first to start. Anna was just really surprised. She has a baby in her tummy, and I told her about it," Rafe admitted. "That's it. That's why you were in such a hurry to get married," the woman realized. But she told Anna not to worry because these things happen, so a pregnant woman shouldn't be embarrassed. Rafe couldn't believe such a failure. "Is anyone here even going to listen to me?" Frustratedly thought the little girl. But she decided that it didn't matter if they believed it or not. Anna was still uncomfortable. Now the little minor heroine must reveal the whole truth. "Your Majesty! His Highness the Crown Prince is expecting you! Let's go together!" The young lady decided to say to cheer up the situation. Now it was necessary to go. There was no turning back anyway. When the queen entered the hall of her mansion, she immediately said hello to Eddie. "Your Majesty, how is your health? I'm so happy to see you. I'm sorry I couldn't come sooner." Sweetly, they greeted each other and hugged each other. "You surprise me. You look too happy." They continued to say hello and giggled. Rafe noticed that the atmosphere was getting heated. They have a bit of an odd relationship. "It's fine. They're always acting annoying," explained the crown son of the throne. "It's been so long since we've seen each other, and you have that sad look in your eyes. I'm embarrassed. I left the capital and couldn't do anything to help you." The adults continued to talk in front of everyone. Her Majesty, who belonged to a family of weak influence, was naturally caught in a vice after ascending the throne. Despite this, she managed to maintain her authority, but the king was still a big problem for her power-hungry relatives. It was because of his support that the queen's power grew, and so Her Majesty's family did everything possible to remove the crown prince from power. That's why they did such terrible things to Zero, even though he's just a kid. Rafe realized that these people could not be allowed to continue hurting children. "Baby, if you want, I can reincarnate and just crush everyone here." Her teddy bear tried to comfort the girl as best he could. "You kind of think you're an adult. That's why I suggested it," justified the toy. At this time, the conversation between the queen and her uncle came to the subject of the baby. "Gosh, you and Anna decided to drop the formalities and go straight to the baby?" the woman happily informed. "There are times when aristocrats want to get married sooner rather than later to rectify the situation. You shouldn't have kept the pregnancy from me. I already know everything already." With a smile on her face, the queen said, "Roll was too naive and soft, young man. He tried to prove to the woman that the child's words were not true, but he was only interrupted in response." "Geez, you don't understand anything. If the child says such things, there will definitely be a baby very soon," she asserted. Even though Roll is stupid enough to marry Anna, he's not the kind of man who's willing to lose his honor and dignity over a woman. And since Anna intends to use him, she's probably worried about getting caught in a lie. The girl continued to make a saint of herself. "I was standing behind Rafe's back and accidentally scared her. I was so surprised myself when she fell." The aunt justified the little girl's tears. Eddie, who came up behind her, also asked his future spouse to be more careful next time. Now things had gone completely off the RAF's plan. "Everything I was going to tell the queen got turned inside out by Roll," the lady said frustratedly to herself. Afterwards, the queen herself suggested that they go out into the garden and talk there. The guests started to leave, but then they heard a little girl cry out. "Wait, I wanted to say," Rafe began. "Ah, baby girl, next time come to my mom and me. We'll feed you deliciously," interrupted the woman to Little Miss. Now all Rafe had to do was accept it. "Right, I should wait a bit. It'll be weird if I keep talking about the same thing," the little girl thought, and Zur would immediately take her hand to walk together. After the protagonist failed to get the truth, it was completely unknown what to do. She and her favorite toy reasoned about it. "What should we do now, little one? Since he has already presented her to the Empress, it's only a matter of time before the wedding takes place," said the toy in reference to the esteemed Mrs.'s brother. But there was nothing to be done now. It would be necessary to return to the palace with Mom as soon as possible, though it was unknown if they would believe you child. As Rafe walked together holding hands with Zur, the rest of the family saw this as well. Her older brother was surprised at how much closer the little girl had gotten to the prince. "You better take your little brother's hand." He thought at that moment because of jealousy. Adrian also thought that the marriage laws would definitely have to be changed afterward. At the same time, the girl thought that everything was going great. They should continue in the same way. They would get closer until they got married. When the boys were walking down the corridor together, they noticed a lady crying. It was one of the queen's personal maids. It was unclear why she was crying, so the little one decided to inquire about it. But she was not allowed to ask what was wrong. Viola advised her to pretend as if she hadn't seen anything. Apparently, something bad had happened. Perhaps the girl should just be alone for a while. And that was the right thing to do. You can't get involved in other people's problems. It was a little unpleasant, but it couldn't be helped. They ended up in the library. I didn't expect them to turn out to be model students. Commendable, but the atmosphere is kind of intimidating, thought the child at that moment. At this time, Adrian was having a conversation with his girlfriend. They decided that they should learn more about the marriage system. So the guys decided to look for books about the law. While they were doing their urgent business, Rafe sat on the sofa with her future husband. The girl decided that it was impossible to miss the opportunity. She continued to gawk at the prince. There were also various goodies on the table. Zur noticed the child's craving for sweets, so he thought that next time he should prepare more of her favorite snacks. At the same moment, Rafe decided to share the details of the recent incident again. "You know, Zur, actually, that's when Anna looked at me and pushed me like that," narrated the little girl and pointed. The girl explained that she didn't hurt herself, but admitted that she was very angry, and that's why she cried. That's when the guy got to thinking, this is all strange. Could it be that that situation wasn't just an ordinary accident? If you think about it like that, carrying a child under one's heart before marriage was a disgrace, and the royal son knew this very well. And that one was also staring at the little girl with such a murderous gaze. Isn't the behavior of Uncle's fiancé too suspicious? He thought. But Zero was comforted by the fact that at least the little girl's appetite was fine. "Hey, you wouldn't mind if I gave you a present, would you?" Rafe asked unexpectedly. She didn't understand why the boy had such a reaction. From his facial expression, it even seemed that he didn't even like presents, as expected from the protagonist. It was then that Rafe asked the boy to close his eyes. He extended his hand, and the girl handed him something in the palm of her hand. When Zur opened his eyes, he saw a beautiful jewel in front of him. In this world, brooches adorned with azure-colored stones have a special meaning. Protective magic is placed on them. A scarlet brooch is usually given as a gift to a daughter. An azure brooch is given to a son. They are proof of paternal love and symbolize the support of the royal family. That's the meaning behind them. Zur had never received anything like this from his father in his entire life. The second prince purposely wore the brooch given by the king to show off in front of him. Of course, Zur didn't show his true emotions, but he was definitely sad and hurt. After all, he was only a child after all. After all, this was one of those things that Duke A.E.'s had made a fuss about recently. "All for my daughter! I'd take a star out of the sky for her. Papa said they contain powerful protective magic. This brooch looks so expensive, it's blinding." "I'm sorry, Dad. However, it would be more useful to the mirror than to me," Rafe realized. In the original story, he would be severely traumatized psychologically, and this thing would be able to help him with healing. And actually, compared to the second prince, Zur is much more handsome. At least that's what little Rafe thought. Well, still, the boy decided to inquire if this thing belonged to Adrian. But the girl said it didn't, especially since it's a gift. In this way, a person is shown how much he appreciates for the giver. And the girl denied that ordinary azure brooches are given only by fathers. After all, that is not true. Anyone can present such a thing to their precious man. Apparently, Zur doesn't know the deep meaning of these things. So the girl had to explain once again the fact that she valued him very much. She thought that the most important thing was that her future husband was safe. Indeed, anyone could give such a piece of jewelry to someone important to them. Exactly! He should live happily and keep his body and soul safe. His soul must not suffer, the protagonist thought to herself. From such a gift, the guy's silhouette literally glowed. Actually, what was expected from the protagonist? Lastly, Rafe asked him not to forget where he got such a brooch. Zur sweetly thanked the girl, and gladly, of course, accepted such a valuable gift. Zur did not receive love from his father, but even without the king, he can be fine. Now it is in the power of the main character of this story only to comfort the guy. "Ah, yes, it's our secret with you. And if you're really grateful, then don't forget to marry me in the future. Got it?" declared the little girl, and thus made the prince laugh. The boy didn't understand why the one was so eager to marry him, which is what he actually asked. "Yes, because Violetta and Adrian have to get married. Besides, it's the only way to make Zur happy. The girl thought to herself, but of course this was in no way to be talked about. Why do you ask? Because in this world, Zur is the most beautiful. Had to explain to the little girl like that. But in response to which the kid only told her to think a little more. In the novel, Zur is a handsome man and the dream of all women. A crown prince with a beautiful body and flawless looks, and a strong will. He is the ideal except for the character, of course. But that's not to say Zira's character is terrible. Now the young man smiles as he strokes his friend's head. Other than behavior, Rafe had yet to discover any other flaws. And despite the fact that he is sometimes a little cold, the guy still treats Violetta and Adrian well. At that moment, the very same guys approached them. They inquired about what Rafe and Zur were doing while the schoolboys were looking for the books they needed. "You can see for yourself with your eyes," Zur sarcastically replied to his competitor. But the girl didn't let them stir up an argument. Now was not the time for that. "Zur, you have to help us. We are looking for a way to abolish the current marriage system in the kingdom," told her friend. "But first, we will need to get parliamentary approval. Zur, your support as the crown prince of this nation is essential. Help us." Viola continued to plead, in response to which the boy even chuckled at first. The brother was horrified. In his mind, he imagined the moment of how the younger one might have a wedding soon. Adrian couldn't even realize such horror in his head. Together, they decided to hug the little girl. "Rafe, don't you feel like marrying me, for example?" With a smile on her face, Viola spoke. In fact, then the whole marriage system would have to be completely eradicated. In fact, they were talking as if it could be done. How naive. You can tell they're kids. I envy them. They can live without worry. Reborn thought. Everyone can present such a piece of jewelry to their precious person. Namely, Zur had grown up quite early. His parents told him at a young age that he would become a king in the future. Therefore, the guy shouldn't act like a little kid, even though he was. "You need to become stronger and more firm," Mom explained. The woman was also telling her son that the second prince couldn't take the throne. His Majesty says that Zuru needs to put in more effort. And even without that brooch, Mom promised that he would definitely be much happier. That's why the Duchess asked him not to dwell on just one piece of jewelry. At that time, the meaning of his mother's words did not reach him. However, nothing had changed now either. He was well aware of the true value of the azure brooch. "Anyone can present such a piece of jewelry to their precious person!" Zur was now remembering the little girl's words. The boys began to study all the textbooks they could find. "Do we not have the power to abolish marriages? At all?" heard the protagonist from Violetta. At this time, the little girl sat back and pondered over her words. "It seems I went a bit overboard in demonstrating my desire to marry Zer. I originally wanted to settle the matter with the queen, and the ruling family had enough problems as it was," she thought. "Now the main task is to uncover the fact of that woman's pregnancy." Perfectly understood Rafe. As the girl searched for a suitable method, the spirit of Orphe immediately came to her aid. "Mistress, may I help you? I know a wonderful option." He kindly intervened, but initially, Rafe wasn't exactly glad to see him. The spirit wasn't allowed to come out here at all. The girl had no desire to look at him right now. But her toy bear informed her that the weirdo really could be useful. Besides, he used to live at court. "Yeah, I can help. I've spent a lot of time poring over the queen's jewelry, and now I know everything about her. I even know how to make her believe your words," the mate reported. But then he also told me that he had one condition, to let him take another form. The water spirit Orphe has immense power. There is no way he can be called simply inducing a stream of thoughts. He is too cunning and clever for that. Although it seemed to the girl that his words did not matter. The one was just pouring water and could not explain anything. The spirit didn't like the reborn at all, but he wasn't kidding when he called her a goddess. A true deity would be able to reveal the true spirit form. However, a contract must be made first. Only after that does a deity truly become a spirit master. No, little one. If you're going to make a contract with someone, then make it with me. I was the first one you had, objected her teddy bear. The two of them, along with the spirit, started arguing over who was cooler as usual. It gave them a migraine. After all, the last spirit master lived hundreds of years ago. By now, both had long since become legends. People believed that various spirits existed in the world around them, but treated them as mythological creatures. In fact, they really do live among us. However, the spirits did not trust people and languished waiting for someone who could make a contract with them. Let the plot. It was Violetta who turned this legend into reality. All of her spirits were ordinary. The only unique among them was Ruby, a simple but extremely powerful spirit. Besides, Zur also had a few contracts on his hands. Orf continued to prove to his mistress that he was extremely good, graceful, and absolutely adorable. Even though he's a bit of a shit, he's actually a really good spirit. Orf can take on the appearance of a very attractive person, but he just has a terrible temper. So the girl had to inform him that she would never be his mistress. "I will not make a contract with you. I will return you to the queen," explained the protagonist. It was the right decision because his true master was Crown Prince Zer. While the girl communicated with the spirits, her little brother continued to study the books. Finding a way to change the marriage system was too difficult. Turning their attention to the little girl, the boys saw that Rafe had already fallen asleep. Violetta and Adrian stood by the couch and admired how Rafe had fallen asleep sweetly. At this time, Zur was only looking at them with disdain. To interrupt the idyll, Zur decided to ask the guy if he was jealous of him. Violetta tried again to stop the upcoming conflict. "Don't! I'm the one who should be jealous of you! She's my sister, and you will marry her. Even as crown prince, I'm against this marriage too," explained his point of view Adrian. After all that happened, Adrian carried his sleeping sister in his arms to the palace. She seemed to be very tired. When he got home, Ren offered to help and wanted to carry the girl himself. But Adrian refused as he had to talk to Mom and Dad urgently. Because of the noise, the girl did wake up. Then she saw her beloved mother in front of her, who was holding her in her arms. Rafe also noticed her father, who was peeking out from under the door. "Daughter, did you have a good time? Nothing happened?" he asked quietly. When the girl reached out her humble father's hand, he also ran to hug the princess. Daddy is indeed a very gentle and caring person. Adrian also told him that Zur had gone to the capital and Violetta had returned home. All the guys are fine. And I was planning on kissing him goodbye and asking him to take me in marriage again. The little girl was slightly upset. Her mom noticed it on the girl's face and reassured her. "Don't worry, we can visit them again next time. Let's go and play together." The two of them hugged each other tightly as a family. At that moment, the children also told them that Night Roll had returned to the capital. Next time, they would have to say hello to an adult with him. Everything was fine, however. There was a matter that bothered the little brother. Night Roll had brought a woman and she had pushed Rafe, so the son did not hesitate to share this with his parents. As soon as his father heard such a thing, he immediately became angry. "Who dared to treat her like that?" he angrily asked. The man immediately summoned his servants. "Ren, call the knights right now," he ordered. But, unexpectedly, the little girl's mother replied that there was no need to do so. She decided to personally meet with Her Majesty the Queen to clarify the situation. The fuss began. Selena had to prepare things for the trip to the palace, and Ren had to gather all the knights and be ready to attack. Adrian believed all the words of his younger sister without a single doubt, which could not but please the protagonist. Even the other members of the family, namely the twins, decided that they should protect Rafe under any circumstances, no matter what. It would be bad if the situation took a serious turn. Therefore, there was no turning back. The girl cried and continued to claim that she had hurt herself. "You must have just gotten a lot of attention in the capital. That's what you say." The adults didn't believe her. The woman asked her assistants to get information on this woman tyrant. She decided to personally take up the case. She had to meet with Her Majesty tomorrow. Even if this woman became the wife of Night Roll in the future, pushing a small child was completely absurd. Now the loving mother wanted to hear her explanation. Duchess AEs continued to hug her daughter. It was a strange feeling for a reborn, a feeling of warmth and complete security. A strange, unfamiliar, but so pleasant feeling inside a child from a mother's caress, mixed with the heaviness inside because of what had happened. The mother looked at her daughter, and they cried together. The woman was truly sorry that things had happened like this, and she wasn't even there for her. Upon arriving in her room, Rafe reasoned again over the fact that she had let a tear fall as soon as she saw her mom's reaction. Her mythical friends tried to calm the girl down. The teddy bear said it was okay. Even he almost let a tear out too, and the same was true of the water spirit. Anyway, it didn't turn out so bad. Mom got really angry and eventually decided to meet the queen. No one dares to treat my daughter like that. Perfectly remembered those words of the woman, the protagonist. It was a fortunate moment, as Anna was still in the palace. There was no telling when else the right opportunity might arise. Therefore, the petite one informed the Orph spirit that he needed to transform, to take the necessary form. The girl offered to make a temporary contract, but this time she would have a condition. In fact, the creature was very much looking forward to this moment. He immediately began to kiss the whole face of his mistress with joy. It was so happy to be accepted. "I just love Mistress very much. Well, all right. What's your condition?" After the harassment, he decided to ask Orph. The girl asked first to tell his plan to get Anna out. "Understood. But you'll need my power to carry it out. That's why I have a condition, too," the man muttered. Orph asked for a real contract with him if everything went well. Watery assured that the plan would definitely work. He would become a very good spirit and obey his mistress. Orph had grown so attached to the little girl since his mistress was such a cutie. He always wanted to meet just such a sweet master. Orph was running all over the bed, not hiding his joy. This didn't please the girl much, but she had to endure for the sake of an important cause. In order to get what she wanted, Anna must be forced to surrender. "Good! You are obliged to make everything perfect, and the degree of perfection is set by me," clearly declared the little girl. However, she also has a condition. One must not give in to this cunning water spirit. "If the plan succeeds, I promise that I will make a contract with you, but only after I do it with Ruby," explained the protagonist. This really endeared the teddy bear to her, so he immediately jumped into his owner's arms. Her friends continued to argue amongst themselves as usual. Still, in the end, Mistress will end up loving me much more. Well, just this once, I'll make concessions. A little intimidatingly, the spirit spoke. Now, it was time to share his plan with Rafe. "I have been lying in Her Majesty's treasury for a long time, and have often moved from one blue jewel to another." Orph began to narrate. Ever since the queen came to the palace, the spirit had lived in her jewelry box. The fictional character was very familiar with Her Majesty's character. They had spent a great deal of time side by side. "I know how to convey to the queen that that woman is pregnant by another man," the man stated seriously. "Don't worry, ma'am. The Empress has a deep belief in spirit divination, fortune-tellers, otherwise known as magicians," the waterman explained. Borrowing the gifts of nature, they memorize special incantations and then divine with the power of the spirits. Unlike monks and priests who use the power of the deity, fortune-tellers often draw their power from nature. They generally have weak magic and usually survive only through their craft. The power of nature that surrounds humans everywhere is the magic of spirits available to humans. However, it is not without some problems. Believers in God at some point began to be wary of this phenomenon. Compared to the distant past, due to the weakening of divine power in the present moment, the power of monks and priests also tends to decrease. Strangely enough, they keep repeating as if divine power is more noble and just. But in reality, all of this is seriously bothering them. As generations change, wizards with pronounced magical power are becoming more and more common. The Reborn remembered that in the original of this story, the kingdom had suffered a lot from the people who belonged to the temple, and Orph had directly confirmed the fact that Her Majesty would rather believe the words of a spirit than some priest. So, Taking advantage of the queen's pride and the power of the spirits, the people from the temple attacked her. Rafe was already upset when she thought it was the spirit's suggestion. It was a very weak solution. The well-wishers could conspire to attack the queen after all. But all Orphe asked was to trust him. As soon as Her Majesty invited the capital's wizards, she would immediately want to use spirit divination. And it will be just as the little girl's water spirit said. She will choose the fortune teller she trusts. Won't she want to know more about her own power? The one asked. So Orphe decided that he would manipulate this wizard's power. Oh, by the way, did you know that the queen believes so deeply in the existence of the water spirit? He also remarked. He had often joked before, or rather helped her. So Orphe thought it would be easier than a lousy turnip. The next morning, the girl had to get ready to go to the neighboring kingdom. Of course, she planned to visit Her Majesty again, but assumed that it would be a little later. And as a result, Rafe was going there again the next day. In just a couple hours, she was already at the queen's residence, the Crystal Palace. Also, her mom's mood was exactly like that of a knight who had entered enemy territory. The woman didn't even hide it much, but already the little girl herself doubted that everything could be all right. Today was scaring her quite a bit. The meeting with Her Majesty was about to take place, and before that, the servants asked the guests to follow them. Walking down the corridor, the girl considered everything around her. Everything was so luxurious, so beautiful, that she couldn't tear her gaze away. "Wait here, please." With a smile on her face, the palace maid asked. "Come on, Rafe! Don't you feel like eating something delicious?" asked her mother. And at that moment, the little one saw that there were many delicious, her favorite desserts on the table. They had prepared sweets, and it was all for the honored guests. And yet it was unclear what kind of person dared to do such an unceremonious thing to a small child. If this woman has the support of the royal family members, then the harm to her daughter could have been deliberately applied. Finally, the S family was informed that Her Majesty the Queen had arrived. The Duchess walked into the hall wearing a beautiful, lush scarlet dress. As soon as the woman was in front of Rafe's mother, the hostess immediately began to offer her apologies. "I apologize, Duchess. I had an urgent matter to attend to." Excused, Mrs. Well. It was fine. On the contrary, it was the guests who came a little early. "I am concerned about a recent situation when a girl named Anna treated my daughter inappropriately." Immediately, the woman began to narrate. She also confessed that she would like the missus to take appropriate action. At that point, the woman on the throne even hesitated. The queen did not know whether to trust Anna's words. On the one hand, she would like to be on the side of the woman her younger brother brought in. On the other hand, she does not want to turn Duke Aes into her enemy. Such heavy thoughts were distracted by a maid who approached the Duchess. From her appearance, Rafe immediately recognized that it was the same crying girl she had seen in the corridor. The maid announced that the fortune teller with whom the appointment had been made had arrived, and the queen happily relayed the news to her guests. "How about getting a talisman with a blessing for Rafe? Take it as a gift. That wizard is the best in the land," my lady said amiably. Mom immediately looked at her daughter and asked in a pointing tone of voice what was to be said to her aunt. "Thank you, Your Majesty." At the same moment, the palace mistress heard from little Rafe. Now it was time to address the spirit world together. The person in front of the woman was the capital's wizard. It was very fortunate that he had come just today. The queen trusts spirits deeply. Now the time had come. It was worth holding one's breath and hoping that everything would go according to plan. Just then, the girl ran out to the adult ladies with a book in her hands. She told them that it was a tale Celine had told her. "It says here that spirits know everything. Is that true?" the little girl inquired. "Gosh, it's a tale about spirit divination. I've read her Zira before, too. That's right, it's pure truth. Spirits know everything," the queen confirmed. Afterward, she offered to divine the future of the new family as planned. "I sincerely do not wish to believe the woman my brother has chosen. However, I am seriously concerned by the Duchess's words. Whatever happened there, if she really did harm the child, she will not get away with it." The Duchess thought at that moment while the wizard prepared his spell. When everything was ready, the magician poured his potion into a bowl prepared in advance. The man announced that it was time to ask questions. As soon as Rafe heard this, she realized that Orphe's time had come. The water spirit quickly moved into the wizard. Immediately, the wizard began to talk about some seed of destruction. The seed of destruction planted by this woman will grow, the greatest wizard informed Zira's mother. And then it ruins everything. Her soul is saturated with malice and guile. The man continued to narrate. Everything was going according to the little girl's plan. Orph was working perfectly. Then the sorcerer summoned Anna. The man told her that this girl was carrying a child under her heart. And not just any child, but a child conceived by another man from the royal family. Those were the wizard's last words on behalf of the water spirit before he came to his senses. When Orph returned to his young mistress, the latter began to scold him as she thought he had overreached. I told the story on behalf of the universe. Even if there is no contract signed with the spirit, it is still able to invade the body of a wizard if the wizard has powerful and pure magic. The main thing is the wizard's faith in using that power, explained the spirit. And it was obvious from the wizard's reaction that he was in a state of shock. Finally, my diligence in serving the spirit of water has borne fruit. It was the great Orpheus. The waterman adorned himself a little. Excellent. You've used a lot of magic. Go back home to rest. I'll send a talisman to the Duchess's house. The queen explained lastly. Ah, yes. If the words spoken today are true, then I guess I'll have to listen to Rafe after all. The woman changed her point of view. Now Her Majesty believes me. Apparently, the queen really and truly trusts the water spirit. She actually harmed me in the restroom. Hurry up! Thought the frightened girl at that moment, but realized that she had to report it again to the queen. Rafe had to tell her that Anna took a direct hold of her shoulders, suddenly grabbed her, and pushed her. As the mother hugged her frightened, crying daughter, she again insisted that the woman must believe the words of the injured little girl. Now the woman called her deputies again. Listen to me! Bring my brother's future wife to me from the Sapphire Palace, right now, and get my healer. Immediately, the woman ordered her servants. Rafe, on the other hand, realized that there should be some clarification of what had happened, so it was necessary to act clearly at that moment, no matter how strong the little one's fear was. Wait. Back then in the restroom, that woman seemed very sad to me. She said, she was crying and kept repeating how she missed Lord Gur. The little girl narrated. Rafe tried to explain to the woman that she had remade everything she could. Yes, and the queen knows very well who the real Lord Gur is. He belongs to one of the families that help Her Majesty in her affairs. Rafe will have to hear the rest from her herself. Lady Anne arrived at the palace. Your Majesty, you wanted to see me. She said hello, and then the Duchess informed her that she had guests waiting for her. When the girl looked around, she saw Rafe, her mother, in front of her. The lady didn't deny that there had been a slight misunderstanding between them yesterday. Children at this age often make things up for themselves and are easily wronged. Mrs. Rafe, I'm fine. Thank you for apologizing to me. The shameless madam lied. At that second, the queen announced that she had also summoned a special guest. Ah, he came! I invited him since I thought you were very tired from the long journey. It was Viscount Lair, Madam's attending physician. Examine her, please, the woman kindly ordered. Immediately, Anna began to nervously refuse help. No need! I'm perfectly healthy. I don't want to cause any inconvenience. How can I burden Her Majesty's physician like this? She began to justify herself. Still, a medical examination is necessary. Don't you know that when traveling one can catch a disease unnoticed? The woman continued to insist, as the bad lady could no longer dodge the examination. I have invited a healer for your sake. Viscount Mayor will measure your pulse with magic. Let him do his job, Mistress declared. At this time, the little girl was silently observing all of this. A medical examination using magical powers is quite astonishing, she thought. However, for some reason, the pulses didn't notice the queen's illness at that time. The doctor reported that the girl was perfectly healthy, but also at the same moment, as expected, the man reported that Anna was pregnant. The girl stood fearfully in a cold sweat. "Could it be Gur's baby?" finished her queen. Just then, Ed burst into the room. The lad was immediately informed that the woman was carrying a child by another man, but he admitted that he didn't care at all, because he loved her. The queen's brother hoped that all would be well, but the woman ordered to take the wretch away. Ed begged his sister to release his wife, but all seemed to be in vain. The queen didn't even listen to him. Everything was suspicious from the start. Caitlin had suddenly told the lad to think again about marrying Anna, but now he finally understood. Ed was now sure that it was all an act of his sister. Unexpectedly, that girl entered the conversation. She was ready to tell Mr. Roll the whole truth. Rafe guessed that the nice lady had been crying then for that very reason. "I'm not interested in reasons. That woman cannot join the Roll family, under no circumstances." The Queen of the Roll Palace clearly stated. These words of Her Majesty made Mr. Ed lose his temper. "In that case, you can strike me off the family roster," offensively stated he. The little girl was shocked. "What are you talking about? Don't go away! Take that back!" She thought at that moment. Well, the guy already had completely different plans. He decided to find Anna and get out of here together. The queen was desperate. She asked her assistant Caitlin to follow Ed. The woman had a bad feeling about her brother's unscrupulous wife. Rafe, on the other hand, didn't understand at what point things got so bad. Things were going according to plan, but at one point, everything fell apart. The girl saw that her mom was also at a loss. She is worried about her daughter, and that's why she can't approach the queen. Besides, such a scene the child obviously shouldn't have seen. The reborn realized that she had to act. The girl decided to excuse herself from her mother to go to the carriage. "I'll be there soon, and you wait for me there for a while. Agreed?" suggested her beloved mother. The little girl knew she had to find Mr. Roll quickly. She ran towards the street at a fast pace. As soon as the little girl ran up to the carriage, she spotted Caitlin near the queen's brother. "Ed, please calm down and come back to Her Majesty." The lady tried to calm him down, but the boy only thought that the one was lying. The two seemed to be quite close, but their conversation didn't last long. In the middle of the topic, the guy only turned away and callously walked away. Even to the requests not to leave the girl alone, he didn't react in any way. As expected, apparently this girl loves Mr. Roll. She tearfully begged him not to leave. Already in the palace, to the mother of the protagonist came an urgent letter from his lordship the Duke. Information about that woman Anna. One had to check what it said. "If things are left like this, even the children will be in danger. Bring Ed here immediately." The mistress wrote on the sheet. When Rafe did run up to Caitlin, the girl started asking if she liked Mr. Roll. "True, however, unfortunately, Mr. Roll hates me because I was against their wedding to Mistress Anna," confirmed the unfortunate lady. This girl really genuinely loves Ed, and it was evident in all her words, and even in her crying eyes. Her soul is suffering the most. At the two embracing ladies at this time, to the side, the very same Anna was looking on. "It was you who spoiled my plans," angrily replied the bad miss, and with a sharp blade moved towards the little girl. This lunatic had finally lost her mind. Rafe clung to the maid and was already saying goodbye to her life. But then the little girl, who had closed her eyes, saw a white light. When she looked, she noticed her mother in front of her, who kneeled the bad girl. As it turned out, the woman was beautifully wielding a sword. Anna's husband saw all this. The guy was so shocked that he couldn't say anything anymore. "Fool! Because of your feeble-mindedness, 2 people almost got hurt." The queen began to shout at him. "Here, the papers. Do you want to marry a criminal with attempted murder?" continued to yell at the queen. So why is he confused? Ed found out the dirty secret of the woman he was going to seal his marriage with, against all odds, pondered the protagonist. As soon as the mom inquired about her daughter's well-being, it was as if she immediately began to fall under the ground. Suddenly, she felt very dizzy. Luckily, her plan worked. But it worked a little differently than the girl had planned. When the little girl opened her eyes, she realized that she was in her bed. As it turned out, she had fainted, but there was nothing really wrong with that, especially after such a stressful experience. Except I don't think your family thought the same, informed her spirit bear as he saw that all of Rafe's family members were closely observing her well-being. Anyway, apparently she was a lot more scared than she thought. Plus, it turns out her good-natured mom had been a knight all along, which amazed the girl even more. It was really cool and just as unexpected. Anna had been revealed, and the queen had done her duty, which meant it was time to sign a contract with one frightening spirit. But first, Ruby had to be first. Bear even admitted that he had been waiting for this moment and had been carefully preparing. Finally, he would be able to show his true colors. Already in a second, in the hands of the little lady was a contract with the spirit. The girl assumed that it was written in an ancient language she did not understand. But as it turned out, it was not an ancient language, but the speech of their kingdom. It turns out that Miss won't be able to read them even when she becomes an adult. The future master referred to in this contract as Party A and the spirit, referred to in this contract as Party B, agree to take care of each other and honor all agreements. Bear paraphrased the contents. Clause 1, Party B, at the request of Party A, has the right to terminate the contract within 3 days of the date of the contract without any penalty. Also read the bear. Such time lapses, of course, did not please the girl very much. Yes, and the whole thing was a bore. Now she had to sign it. Her signature could be left in a blank space, as it was a special contract. At that moment, she had a beautiful pattern on her hand, but just as quickly, it disappeared. The water spirit reported that it was a sign that the contract was safely concluded. If everything went according to plan, it would be much easier now. But Orphe said that even after the contract was signed, he would not let the girl reincarnate immediately. So it was better to come down to earth. What do you mean? I just can't let this place turn into chaos, thought the little aristocrat at that moment. The bear then decided to find out the reason why she kept pushing back the terms of the contract. It would be easier for you to gain the queen's trust if you gave Her Majesty information about the people around her, the teddy explained to her. But the queen was already feeling guilty in front of the girl as it was. Do we have a need to reveal all of the enemy's cards in advance when Her Majesty's trust is not so hard to gain by other means? The little girl decided to ask. In human hands, spirits were likely to be used for political purposes. In the original story, the reborn girl, Zer, and even Violetta had gotten into the academy by avoiding the power of the aristocrats. If you're not going to use them for political games, then I'll obediently wait for the right time, soothed her toy. And Rafe was in agreement with that. They shouldn't worry too much about their enemies. How dare they even use spirits in such dirty deeds? Now it was Orph's time. The girl had to do the same thing, just sign on a piece of paper, though the girl herself had asked the water spirit to read the terms of the contract first. But me! Why are you looking at me like that? Do you really think I would dare to cheat? Do you really think as if I added a clause about the spirit being able to act on its own, regardless of the master's will? You can change the special contract as you please. The waterman began to resent it. The girl was already used to Orphe's character, so she didn't react in any particular way. All she had to do was sign the leaflet. Since you are a very sly guy, I think it's time to move to more serious measures of education, thought the little girl. According to the treaty, the spirit of Orph is not allowed to reincarnate without Rafe's consent. If the queen was cornered, this treaty would be a chance to change the situation. But Rafe hoped that such a thing would not happen. Don't worry, little one. As long as I'm here, I'll do whatever you want, said her bear Ruby. From now on, you don't have to worry anymore. How about we go to bed early tonight? Suggested the spirit. And it was the right decision. Tomorrow, after all, she and her mom were going to see the royal family. So it was necessary to go to bed to gain strength. Rafe thought that when she arrived in the capital, she would meet with Zero. The next morning, the mother and her young daughter were already sitting in the palace of the queen of the royal family. "Thank you for coming even in a situation like this. I hope the journey didn't cause you any inconvenience," greeted the guests by the lady of the house. "Of course not. Thanks to your care, we arrived safely," replied the kindly Mrs. to her. But the girl confessed something. "However, I cannot remain calm when thinking of the man who harmed my child." With the horror of her memories, Rafe's mother confessed to the missus. "I realize my tactlessness, but I would like to know how that woman will be punished." Decided at that moment to ask the representative of the AE's clan, her daughter felt an unpleasant atmosphere at this moment. It was much scarier than expected. "I understand the circumstances, but I couldn't imagine that Mommy could be so icy," thought the little girl at that moment. "If this continues, suddenly she won't let me consummate my marriage with Zer?" Rafe wondered. But of course, she was already getting herself worked up. These were childish fantasies of Rafe's. Parents' prohibition. It shouldn't have happened, especially since her future husband was a nice enough young man. "Of course, I understand you perfectly," informed the woman, and silently smiled strangely. "What, is she really that shocked by what happened?" thought Rafe. When the little girl was alone with Zer's mom, the woman admitted that there was something she wanted to ask the child. "Why did you make the decision to come back here and not get scared despite the unpleasant situation last time?" She asked the question, which stumped the little girl. "I wasn't scared at all. It's just that woman wasn't going to repent for her mistakes," replied the child then. "And I absolutely hated to see the queen keep her head down, being sinless," explained the little mistress. The girl also declared, slapping her hand menacingly on the table, that she was not the least bit afraid. "On the contrary, I was looking forward to another meeting with your majesty. Therefore, your majesty, I'm fine," she admitted at that moment. The queen remarked how brave the young lady was. She resembled her mother in the days of chivalry. "You and Duke S were really hot back then," the woman quietly admitted. "I'm a mother, too, so I understand your feelings well. That's right. This situation has shocked and saddened all of us." Duchess Rolls summed it up. She personally apologized to her guests for what happened, even though she wasn't involved herself. "Because of the foolishness of my brother's decision, the precious child that has struggled to recover from the previous situation could have been seriously harmed," voiced her thoughts aloud to the lady. "This woman will stand trial. Her crimes are significant. She probably won't be able to escape punishment," explained the queen. Therefore, Mom and her daughter Rafe didn't need to worry. It was now possible to exhale fully. In addition, as an apology, the queen had prepared a gift for Duchess AEs and the youngest daughter. The mistress asked her servant to carry it out, and then some sort of chest appeared in front of them. "I hope you will find it to your liking. Rafe, this is for you," the woman informed. The box glowed so brightly that it simply dazzled the little girl with its beauty. They accepted the gift without hesitation, but the atmosphere was a little oppressive to the girl. She realized that she had to do something. As it turned out, the award given was a beautiful pendant with a precious stone. The red ruby in this necklace glowed with a very beautiful light. It was exactly what the guests thought it was. The queen had given Rafe a necklace given to her by the past queen. It turns out that this necklace is the necklace that the mother-in-law gives to her future daughter-in-law. This couldn't have pleased the little miss more. Things were working out even better than she could have imagined, and much better than her plan to change the course of events. But the woman declared that it was not necessary to attach much importance to all this. She had inherited a few jewels from the previous queen. She was just very grateful to Rafe. And this piece of jewelry suits her quite well. That's why she received such a gift. Don't dismiss my sincerity. Don't think that I'm giving it with such an intention. All clarified and appeased the little girl's thoughts by the queen. Although, later the girl's mother told her that the queen clearly sees her as the future consort of the crown prince. One couldn't help but understand why the one had chosen the garden as the place for Rafe and Zer to meet. "Rafe, don't be bored. Duchess, why don't she and Zer play together in the garden?" the woman then suggested. It turns out she wasn't even trying to hide it. His Highness the Crown Prince is all busy." It was obvious that the girl's mom was very embarrassed. But if the queen wants to set up S's youngest child with Zer, then thank her very much for that. The girl had a great opportunity to smell him to herself. As Rafe waited for her favorite prince in the garden, she noticed another guest there as well. He was also surprised to see her. "It must be this young lady. She is today's guest from the house of Duke Aes," told the young man by his escort. "How about leaving the gift necklace with her for a while? It is a symbol of political marriage, after all." Offered her toy, concerned for the future, and the very safety of her mistress baby. After all, to lose such a valuable piece of jewelry would be less sad than shameful. In any case, the girl could always return it to Zeru in the future. Besides, it's very beautiful. It looks like there's a glass scarlet flower inserted inside. You look at it, and you just can't take your eyes off it. The girl decided to show it off to Zeru as soon as he came to meet her, but then someone approached her. Rafe turned around excitedly, expecting to see her brother, but the young man standing in front of her had red hair and lilac eyes. It was an arrogant gait and unkind gaze. The little girl didn't like him right away. The girl had already definitely seen the face of this guy, but could not remember who it was. Wait, this boy is the son of the king, the second prince of the kingdom of Antonio. In the original story of this novel, the boy was the man who destroyed the entire state, the master criminal, in the original, who sowed destruction, an incompetent king who caused the destruction of the entire kingdom. In the future, he will be defeated by the allied powers and destroy his own country. The son of another queen of state, the second crown prince, Antonio Fair. The girl couldn't even believe that the very same scoundrel would be in front of her eyes so soon. Unpleasant guy immediately began to ask about where from, what kind of family the little girl was from. "They say you're a person from Duke S's family. You're that rumored kid, aren't you? Somehow your appearance doesn't fit with what they say you are," the guy said cheekily, also pointing his finger at her. "What are you doing here alone? Did that woman, or rather Her Majesty, kick you out?" The boy continued to speak unkindly, and even Ruby's spirit couldn't stand it anymore and just lost its temper. Orf couldn't listen to it anymore either, so the girl insisted as much as possible that they shouldn't do anything thoughtless. Still, the time wasn't right yet, and it was too early for them to transform. The girl decided to tell him that she was just waiting for Zer's brother. This surprised Antonio quite a bit. "Strange. Her Majesty assured me that only Zer could come to the garden. The Queen's influence is still quite strong. No matter how stupid Antonio is, he won't cross her. Of course, he has no shortage of excitement. Already, even the heir's bodyguard had already started to hint to the fact that the guy was being too loose with his words. Your Highness, if Her Majesty finds out about this..." But the insolent guy, completely unexpectedly to the little miss, instead of listening to the elder, only hit him with all his might right in front of the little kid. "You hear me, you asshole! I told you to bring me to where Mommy is, and where did we end up?" Cheekily, he shouted to his employee. After all the things he wanted to say to the older man, the guy turned around already at the main character who was sitting behind him. "Hey, you, get it in your head. You're just lucky right now. I'll leave, but you'll remember me again," he said lastly. Fortunately, the protagonist was able to withstand such pressure. She certainly wouldn't forget about him. And it was not clear what he wanted from her. The girl had already met with similar people who had a terribly bad character. Fortunately, nothing had happened, but it was unclear what had happened. Rafe only assumed that the man was going to punish her. Finally, Zer approached the little girl. "Rafe, is something wrong?" he immediately asked. However, the little girl realized that she had to bitch it all out. It would be for the sake of her angel's future. She sweetly hugged her friend and explained that nothing was wrong. Besides, these two better not see each other unnecessarily. Rafe, are you sure you're okay? I heard the conversation. The boy told at that moment. The girl wondered if he already knew that they had crossed paths with Antonio. But as it turned out, the prince had a different situation in mind. Uncle Ed, no. Knight Ed has caused you a lot of trouble because of his guest. I heard that you weren't hurt. You weren't too badly frightened? Inquired the young man. This question made the girl slightly happy. Are you worried about me? Directly she asked, and the boy did not even deny it. Could it be that the brainwashing has finally yielded its first fruits? The girl thought at that moment. Well, as it turned out, it was just friendly solidarity, since Zur called her Adrian's little sister. But the reborn was not used to giving up halfway. At that moment, the girl decided that now was as good a time as any to show off her new necklace as it was to take advantage of it. Brother Zer, do you see this piece of jewelry? It was given to me by Her Majesty with the words for you and me to get married, informed the little one. But the girl only experienced a double defeat. Zur reminded her again that she was still a child. What marriage could not even be talked about, since the guy does not perceive her as a girl, and he himself is still young enough to even talk about. Rafe, listen, marriage is for adults. Your family might be sad that you sometimes take marriage so lightly. I don't know why you're so eager to marry me. The boy explained to her. However, during adulthood, you will definitely succeed in finding yourself a wonderful man. In other words, you need to look for someone you will love. The young man lectured her, although it hurt Rafe's pride, but she had no choice but to resort to that way. It was time for special, powerful techniques to be used, and they consisted of things that only a child could afford. The girl had absolutely no desire to develop the course of other events. She thought they had to marry the prince. She began to give him a hysterics because of what the guy said. The little girl tried to explain that people don't get married just because they love each other. If there are important reasons, they can just make false promises to each other and do it out of convenience. Unexpectedly, the schoolboy was told by a small child. The kid's boyfriend was surprised and decided to wonder who taught her that. He already wanted to ask what kind of trash had instilled this in the little girl, but the prince himself realized that one should not talk to children in such a manner. Tell me, Rafe, who told you that? Zur began to question. Then the girl replied that she had read it in a book. In her favorite book that often enough a child could reread several times. She knew that the crown prince has no way to influence the conclusion of his own marriage and simply makes a false promise to marry someone. But then he meets the princess and takes her as his wife. That's right. It's the perfect future for Zer. The girl thought he should make it just that. This story is about a prince eventually meeting the person he loves, dreamily thought the little girl. Not a prince, but some trash. He promised to marry and then found someone else. That's a very bad man. Bringing her back to earth, back to the boy. Anyway, you shouldn't imitate all sorts of stories. Never give your heart to a man who says one thing, does the opposite. Zur advised, and Rafe didn't even realize how things had turned out this way. After such moralizing, which was already completely boring to the child, as she was not interested in it, the girl saw her mom in the crowd. She immediately ran into the arms of her favorite blood soul. Rafe, did you have a good time? Inquired the woman, to which she received a positive answer. What good timing for Mom to show up. Just a little bit more, and Zur would have verbal diarrhea of lecture format. The guy himself, after talking to the child in detail, ruled out the idea that the girl wanted to marry him because she liked him. It turns out she just likes that trash prince from the book, and that's why she wants to marry me. Of course, Rafe is still a kid. We should warn Adrian. He thought, and that was what he thought was the right decision. In fact, his mother had not come just to see her favorite daughter. Your Majesty, Her Majesty wanted to speak with you, the woman informed. Zira's mom also wanted to talk to her son. When the boy was already heading towards the palace, Rafe didn't let him pass. She took him by his arms and started chatting sweetly with the guy. "There's nothing to worry about, because you're going to marry me anyway." The girl stated seriously and continued to hold his hands and didn't want to let go. Zer wasn't too pleased with this behavior. As expected, she's completely clueless about men, he thought to himself before going to see his mother. Meanwhile, Sophia Palace. The servants told the queen of the castle that His Highness had arrived. Immediately, her son burst into the mistress's room. "Welcome, my dear prince." He was greeted kindly by the second queen, Rebecca Fair, but it was obvious how angry her son was, which his mother picked up on. "You seem to be in a bad mood. You've only just arrived." She wondered. Then the guy defiantly pointed his finger at the bodyguard his mom had provided him. "This guy wanted to bring me to the palace of the first queen." The red-haired schoolboy sued him. Antonio had told him that the idiot employee had almost gotten the guy in trouble because of this idiot, which actually made him incredibly pissed off. The queen mom, of course, like any other mother, believed her little boy and began in putting forward her grievances to the man. The employee tried to explain how things really were, but no one would even listen to him. What the son said made the woman very angry. "Insolent man! You dare to bring my son to the palace of the first queen?" She shouted at him with all her might. The truth did not prevail, and in the end, the aides forcefully led away to punish the young man. "Beat the wretch with a birch immediately," ordered the queen. The boy was still trying to beg for mercy. "Your Majesty, have mercy, Your Majesty," he begged. But of course no one even listened to him, although in truth the man was completely innocent. But this kind of punishment, without even inquiring about how things really were, was the norm in Sophia's palace. The woman believed that everything her son said was true, and after something like this, an employee's body would never be the same again. The other employees of the palace only stood quietly by in horror, hoping that they would never suffer such a thing. When the bodyguard was taken out, Antonio remembered another fact that he had learned recently after coming to a neighboring kingdom. Ah, that's right. The Duchess came to the Queen's palace. "I met that girl who recently returned to the Duke's house there. It's a pity you didn't come to meet her, mother," he informed. The cheeky guy lied again and said how cute that girl was. Though because initially Rafe didn't like the prince at all, since the girl was content to be so smart and brave. It was then that the boy also stated that he wanted a little sister for himself as well. "Gosh, but it's not up to me. It's up to His Majesty." His mother tried to explain, but he didn't listen to her at all. Antonio now immediately ordered his mother to give birth to a second child. "Prince, calm down. You can't just suddenly make a baby sister like this." Mom continued to explain. Then the son suggested an alternative option he had just thought of, that they pay money to the Duchess. "I say we can buy this little girl back from the Duchess," Sassy continued to suggest. Mother realized that to do so was at least impossible, at most very ugly, and no one would go for it. But at the same time, she also realized that judging a child for such a suggestion was a bad idea, considering the boy's character. So she decided to lie to him a little. "That's a fine idea. You're so savvy. However, Prince, we can't buy this child right now. In return, I'll get you another toy in the meantime. Just you wait." Offered an alternative option, she offered to her son. Now, one had to think what could be done next to appease the child for a while. Everything that the prince asks of his mother must eventually end up in his hands, and there was no other option for the outcome of events. As difficult as it might have been, the woman was really counting on being able to steal the baby girl. There was no other way out. In the morning, when the little girl was lying in her bed, her favorite brother came to her. He took the teddy bear in his hands and began to play with it demonstratively, after which he approached the owner of the toy. "Rafe, would you like to play with your little brother?" he inquired, and caught the attention of the little princess. The first question that interested the girl was about her older brother's studies. but Adrian informed her that everything was fine. He had finished early on purpose, so they could spend time together and play whatever the little one wanted. They were supposed to have fun today. Then the guy decided to ask the kid if she loved him. The girl answered without hesitation that he was very much waiting for a positive answer. It was evident from his face. And all because she was very busy lately and could not play with him. Unfortunately, she had unintentionally been running away from him constantly for the past few days. Well, today they were definitely going to have fun together. Even though the girl was tired, she had to do it for the sake of her favorite brother. Otherwise, he would be very offended and would not want to play with the child himself. Gladly, Rafe answered how much she loved her Adrian. "I love my baby brother more than anyone," she declared. Behind the boy's back at this point was a sensor that was recording what was being said. He pressed a button, and there was a distinctive pie sound. Now he laid that recorder out on the table, re-enabling the tape of the girl saying how much she loved her brother the best. But Rafe did not appreciate this approach at all. With rage, she even slammed her fists on the table. "What is this? I played with you as long as I could. How dare you trick me and record my voice?" she thought to herself. At the same time, the cheeky man was boosting his self-esteem by recording the little girl's voice. He turned it on several times to everyone in the family. Did everyone hear it? Who Rafe loves more? Each time the sound was repeated, the questioner asked. It was very strange and inappropriate, and after all, the girl trusted him the most. That's why he repeated those words so insistently as they played together. "Rafe, do you love your little brother very, very much? Really, really, really much?" The girl just couldn't listen to it anymore. She was even covering her ears with her hands. No, no way! The other children weren't thrilled either. They informed the older one that it was a violation of the rules. "Rafe, how could you say you love your brother more than us? Rafe, you love us more, don't you?" inquired the twins. Just then, their dad, the Duke of the Kingdom of AEs, did not turn a blind eye to this behavior of his child and rang the bell for everyone to calm down. "How are you behaving at the table? Aren't you ashamed in front of the younger ones?" Father asked Adrian in a serious tone. "You're the older brother after all, and you do this to them. Give that toy here," ordered the father, and held out his hand for his son to hand the thing over. Even though it wasn't a toy at all, the boy forced himself to hand it over to his dad. It was obvious how Adrian didn't want to part with the precious thing. After all, it had his little sister's confession written on it. "Son, it's all for you," explained the father who took the rattle. It was impossible to do otherwise, because Adrian had already overstepped all boundaries and not only recorded her voice without the girl's knowledge, but also bragged about it to the other children. It's better to let it stay with Daddy. Though his wife didn't mind having it at her place, so the man gave it to her. As Rafe lay on her bed in the evening and thought back on the whole situation, she was surprised at how weird her family was. She talked about tonight's dinner. The girl confessed to her bear Ruby that she was very ashamed of absolutely everyone in the family. Instead of eating, they had taken to crowding around that pendant. This made the girl very embarrassed. But the teddy tried to convey to her that the kinfolk were only acting like this because they love her. They love her, absolutely. A family that is always on the side of the protagonist, giving only joy and warmth. What unbearable pain they will not experience if they lose a family member again. Perhaps this is why, in the original, Adrian went to a place where he cannot be found. And now the girl's goal was that she would be sure to protect these people. After spending countless hours thinking about it, the Reborn could only find one sure way. The second queen's family must fall. But how did they manage to overthrow the first queen? The answer is simple. More often than not, they resorted to using the most obvious of their own advantages, monetary domination. One time, I guess it won't be a big deal if I pay them in the same coin, came up with an ingenious plan at that moment, the little girl. "Orf, You can turn into a human, right? Immediately turn right now. And no tricks. Just then, the mistress pointed out, and the water spirit's star hour had finally arrived. In the same second, a handsome guy with blue hair appeared in front of the little girl. Orphe was already excited to be dazzling, but the girl gave him a frustrated look. "This isn't going to work," she said thoughtfully. Rafe explained that she needed a deputy to do her secret business. Since being a 6-year-old child, she can't do anything on her own without her parents knowing. "But is it possible to conduct business in this guise?" asked the little girl. "Anyone would think you're a rogue preying on noble ladies. Don't you have any other guise?" Rafe missed it a little, but there was no other way to handle this matter. One had to take this matter seriously, as it was a matter of life or death. If things went wrong, no one would believe a spirit in a person's body. Nothing good would come of it. "A fraud? How can you say such a cruel thing? It can't be helped," declared the guy, and the girl was already upset here. But as suddenly, another idea for reincarnation came to Orpheus. "Then how about this? Will it work? Anyone would think I'm just a young businesswoman, but I'm still a man at heart," said the water spirit, and turned into a beautiful lady. Now that was another thing entirely. Rafe took the lady standing in front of the dais by the shoulder to deliver her thought. "No, this transformation is perfect. Orph, from now on in this character you become my deputy." Serious but encouraged, the mistress informed, and the spirit was certainly pleased. That same evening, the girl met together with her favorite friend Violetta. The girls had not seen each other for quite a long time, which cannot be said about the joint walks of the two of them. This time, they were walking through a quiet town. The girl shared that she wanted to eat sweets with her friend. "My brothers said there are many delicious desserts on this street," explained her desire for her chosen location to Raph. "And since I love you very much, I wanted to eat them with you," sweetly told the little girl. This made the girl very happy, and the schoolgirl even promised her youngest to buy all the goodies she wanted. Rafe, of course, did not refuse such a wonderful offer. In fact, it was just an excuse. The little girl's goal was to explore the market. And just like that, a walk with Violetta was a great idea. So the child will discreetly learn all the intricacies of the area, as well as spend time together with his favorite friend. At the moment in the royal family, among the luxury goods that monopolize the market, the most important product is coffee. A drink made from processed coffee beans from the south of the continent. Nowadays, it is very popular in aristocratic society. Therefore, there are many coffee shops on this street. And so, while walking down one of these alleys, the little girl noticed a signboard that said coffee. She decided that she should go there. The little girl gripped her hands around her friend's dress and pointed her finger at the sign. "Violetta, let's go in here." The little girl began to beg, but Violetta herself did not know what the child's plan was. Therefore, the girl was not sure that the little girl would like this place. "Are you sure? Thinking there's nothing interesting here," she said. But in response, Viola only received a heated interest from her friend. Rafe proudly admitted that she wanted to watch it. Still, the schoolgirl decided not to say no to her favorite non-blood sister. She decided to turn to the guard. "Then, Seren, may I ask you a favor? Rafe said she really wants to go." Well, what could be done? The man had to accompany the little girl, so he also needed to go inside. When they chose their table, they noticed that the other visitors were behaving quite so uncultured. They were playing cards, smoking right in the establishment, and drinking alcoholic beverages. The guys also managed to listen to the conversation of the neighboring people sitting at the table. "So what happened? Let's not talk about boring stuff right now. Look at this. I won." They heard from so-and-so men next to them. Viola also noticed that the place was very noisy, and on top of that, all the guests here were men. Coffee houses nowadays gather many nobles in one place. The culture of drinking coffee here also belongs to men. Therefore, It was not at all surprising that only the male gender sat in the establishment. I think the sales will increase even more if we can attract women here. The protagonist thought for a second, but she had no influence on that. There wasn't even anything else on the menu besides coffee varieties. Pretty boring place. It's interesting that my uncle visits coffee shops every day. Ever since they built them up a year ago, you hardly see him. Shared the girl. And then the bodyguard revealed that this is where a lot of people get together to just chat. For them, it is a kind of cozy place where you can be yourself. And it's not even because of the delicious coffee. This coffee is really not very good. The guy knew that for sure, because he had tasted the drink himself. It's not about the taste. Coffee for adults is akin to alcohol. The man said that the two of them are still young, so they don't understand it. They say that coffee and alcohol give you a taste of life. Ha, liar! You yourself have the taste of elementary school students. You forgot who was eating chocolate with Luo and Luca not a few days ago. Then thought the protagonist, but did not tell him about it, so as not to spoil the moment when the guy showed his superiority of age. Violetta tried coffee for the first time today, which she shared with her interlocutors. Oh, since it's your first time, maybe it's too strong for you? At least add sugar. Advised the guy, but before he could even finish, the girl had already taken a sip, which was to be expected. Having tasted a small portion of the drink, Viola's face creased. Ugh, how can you even drink such a thing? It's like poison, declared the disgruntled girl. Assistant Wren even laughed off this. After all, he had said that it was the flavor of life. At that moment, Rafe also gave in to her curiosity. She dipped her fingertip into the coffee cup and licked it to taste it. The spirits even disputed this point amongst themselves, for it was not good to taste from a finger. But let's just say Orphe thought it was okay for Mistress to do that, because she was very nice, and the girl herself knew it. We have to try it, so there's nothing to do. I'm too small. They won't order it for me. The drink tasted really disgusting, which Rafe confirmed, even though Wren said it was bitter and tasteless. But real coffee should be sweet and tart, or with a sourness that enhances its noble flavor. And bitter coffee can refresh the mouth. How on earth did they roast coffee beans here? And the smell, the taste is repulsive. The girl couldn't even hide her indignation on her face, so Viola questioned if she was all right. It was even unknown if the right coffee beans were selected, whether it would be enough to start trading. There's a bad turnover here, and a boring interior. Plus, the kid didn't understand how a coffee shop could be without desserts. How about we show everyone the taste of Korean food? The sweet-toothed protagonist wondered. Yes, and Reborn perfectly realized that it would help to overcome the stereotypes that coffee is only for men. So she clearly decided for herself that she would show people the real taste of coffee. To protect the Empress from the royal family that monopolizes the import of coffee beans, the best option is to take away their business. The girl decided to tell her spirit friends. Now she had to share her plan. Apparently, the biggest income for the royal family came from importing coffee beans. Instead of steady payments and bonuses to the workers, they spend it all on their own leisure time. And it's also said that they use mercenaries to physically intimidate the workers. With that in mind, the girl wondered if they should follow the law to reach out to such rivals. Yes, you're absolutely right, ma'am. Show those villains where the crayfish are, supported her water spirit. According to Rafe's plan, they were to kidnap a coffee bean trading ship monopolized by the royal family. At this time, on the west coast of the continent. The fog was thick today, so nothing could be seen. The sailors were discussing the weather conditions and didn't understand why such a change, yet everything was normal. One of them didn't even know if they would be able to make a decent profit this time. "Huh, make money? I bet we won't even get a coin," the dude replied with a sneer. "They won't give us any money. They're holding the family hostage. We have to live like this, going out to sea, not even knowing if each of them will come back." In that second, suddenly, a strange ship appeared in front of them. The guys realized it was a pirate attack. The strange pirate had set a festive table for the sailors. The guys were simply shocked. Is he definitely a pirate? He had a pirate hat, so they were sure of his status. That said, it was unclear where such pronounced kindness was coming from. Sure enough, but it was actually Orf's spirit that had turned into a human. But the people didn't know that, of course. Pirates rob ships and take all the money. They throw sailors overboard or kill them themselves. Or they take them hostage, sell them as slaves, or auction them off to aristocrats. Suddenly the pirates appeared and invited the boys to their ship, and it was very strange. They set the table with expensive dishes. Some of the sailor boys had never seen such fine food before. The guys were holding on with their last strength not to eat anything from there. But it was no longer possible to tolerate, because they had not eaten such a normal meal for a long time. So still, they swooped down to the banquet. Great. If we're done, let's get down to business now. Who's in charge of supplying coffee beans on this ship? Asked the spirit after they finished their meal. Then the not-real pirate handed over the necessary contract to the person in charge of the business. The stranger informed them that their beautiful and universally loved mistress was offering a contract. Oh, do you have any idea what a great opportunity this is to make a contract with our mistress? It's an exciting feeling. A guy in a pirate costume reported. Although the sailors couldn't believe what was happening to them at this moment, but of course, they had to agree. Upon arriving home, the water spirit reported that he had hidden the coffee beans at the request of his mistress. Orphe was confident that no one would find them. Of course, it couldn't be any other way with a magnificent spirit like me, the one boasted. All was well with the sailors, too. Everyone signed a contract, and the pirate prepared houses in a safe neighborhood for them and their families. Since the spirit had cast a spell of oblivion, Viscount Ted wouldn't bother them. The people were happy. Orf also shared that the ship was on its way. The merchant ship he built set sail this morning. Spirit ships are always perfectly safe. You're quite competent. I didn't even expect it. In fact, I didn't know you'd be so thorough. Admired the little girl. Orpheus was pleased at this, and in the guise of a human hugged his mistress. At last she noticed his true worth. Why does a spirit like Orf try so hard, clinging to me? The girl reborn into the main character of the book thought at that moment. Then she directly decided to ask him what he really wanted from her, but he didn't want anything, which the girl didn't believe at all. Huh? Don't make me laugh. I know your character very well. If you say everything now, I'll listen, so speak up. She promised. At that time, the guy kneeled down and asked to find his legendary relic. Ahem! A spirit acquiring a legendary relic is like buying your own house, which is an ordinary person's lifelong dream. Thanks to it, the spirit can use immense power to fulfill its wishes. Orf explained. The girl then wondered why he needed to make a pact with her since he could find the relic himself. Well, it wasn't that simple. In the original, the choice of spirits always fell on strong magic Violetta and Zare. The moment the girl put on his bracelet, she felt the magical power. As it turned out, in order for a spirit to find a sacred relic, it needs to make a pact. But if the owner doesn't find it, no one can ever do it. So the girl turned to her teddy bear. Ruby, isn't there anything you want to tell me? When I find your legendary relic, won't it be used to cure the Empress's illnesses? Or did you have other plans for her? The protagonist inquired. But the bear honestly promised that when they got the relic, they would definitely cure the woman. After that, Rafe asked Orf what would happen to the contract when he acquired the relic and became a strong spirit. As it turned out, then the spirit acquires its natural appearance and free will. That is, the spirits use their owner and then abandon him. This disappointed the girl, and she was already thinking of breaking the contract. Then her spirits immediately tried to stop her any way they could. They promised that even after they found the relic, they would keep the contractual relationship for at least 5 more years, and would do whatever the mistress said during those years. Anyway, finding it is not an easy task, right? I'm going to agonize in the search for you. Shouldn't I get to benefit as well? Asked the little girl at that moment. Well, how shall we step? I'm going into an unprofitable business. declared the small but cunning protagonist.